Hello and welcome. I'm your Code Monkey.
And welcome to episode 40 of the Hot Path Show.
You confused me there.
Only kidding. I am not Code Monkey. In fact,
my name's Johnny.
So we got a new "My Name is Johnny" producer tag. Also, breaking news. I think this is the first time that we're going to be sharing this on the show here. But one of our viewers found this.
Damn, Tobias.
Oh, wow.
So we have the Tobias producer tag.
Damn, Tobias.
Damn, Tobias.
Damn.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
There's an artist called Tobias.wav. And
WAV.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, he's a rap artist, and he like at least on YouTube Music, he had like 40 plays on like each of his songs. So like super like underground kind of thing. But yeah, someone came across him.
He's like literally underground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, his music was actually pretty good. And yeah, we got a nice Tobias producer tag.
Damn, Tobias. Yes, I like it. Damn.
Yeah, no, welcome everybody to the Hot Path Show, episode 40. Got an exciting episode planned out for you all today. Going to be talking about a project that I worked on about a year ago, a little over a year ago, called Turbo Wars, which is kind of a clone of this StarCraft 2 mod called Nexus Wars that I made. I have some videos on the channel from a while back, but yeah, I wanted to kind of like do a dedicated episode of the Hot Path Show where we're just kind of opening the code base and clicking around in some things, and yeah, maybe talking about some things that I've learned within the past year that I might be doing a little bit different now. So yeah, I think it'll be a good overview about all that. So yeah, anyways, Tobias, how things are going over there in Sweden for you?
It's very dark and very moody, or what's the word when it's foggy? There's like kind
of like ominous almost.
Ominous. I know there's, yeah, I'm gonna remember the word. I know there's a fancy word I like, but yeah, it's good, but it's very dark, very, very, very.
What time is it getting dark out there in Sweden these days?
I don't know, like 5:30 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like dark at 7.
Yeah, that's
like
I feel like we're getting darker earlier than you actually. And also, it has been snowing nonstop since Tuesday night for me.
Oh wow, you're that far north.
It is. I don't think it's me being north. I'm just at elevation.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That actually makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, it is snowing like actually pretty hard right now.
Nice.
But
gloomy. Yeah, I think I thought about gloomy. But maybe. I think so. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's gloomy here. Yeah. When I am out walking with Felix, he has a lot of hunting genes. He just sees stuff everywhere. It smells like, it's cold, so he doesn't get overheated, and he just sees like, there's maybe a rabbit there. I need to run like crazy. Oh shit, I have a leash.
Can't do that.
And now
does he like playing in the snow?
Yeah. He's he like the optimal temperature for him, I think, is like slightly above 0 Celsius, which it's like, what is that?
32 is freezing.
32.
Yeah.
But if it's snow outside, he's just like, cool and nice, and then he can run around and be crazy, and he doesn't overheat. Yeah.
No, it's funny because there's some people who are like taking their dogs out, walking out by my house, and some of them are just like totally loving the snow. They're just like bouncing around and making a mess and just having the time of their lives.
Yeah. I remember I said when we were out walking, and I had got to know Felix I just knew him for a few weeks or months, and he was like wanted to go into the lake, and it was like, I don't know, 0 degrees or something, and I was like, you shouldn't let him go into the lake because it's cold and maybe he will freeze. And my girlfriend said, like, if he sees a duck and we let him go, he will go and chase that duck, and he will, kill it. And then we come back and he will like, water. What's water? What's cold? I don't know. I just killed a duck. I'm all good.
Just shake it off.
Yes. Yes. So anyway, dogs are nice.
That's great. Well, yeah, let's get into kind of some of our. We'll get into our little warm up topic here that I have planned out. Actually, not talking about winter weather, but got a little breaking news here. I got a PS5 Pro.
Oh wow! Damn.
Yeah, exciting
it-
times over here at the Turbo Makes Games household.
Have you been gaming like crazy?
Well, it literally just came in last night.
Oh,
So I've basically just had enough time to plug it in, get like the updates and stuff installed, and yeah, that's where we're at. But yeah, anyways, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like tech hardware in general. If there's any like, I don't know, memorable tech hardware that you might have picked up at some point in your life, or
I got some. That's
any
a good
any
warm-up
things that
topic.
you're kind of like interested in that you maybe want to get your hands on at some point. But yeah.
Yeah. I can't. There's actually one thing that is like both sad and interesting at the same time. I think it was last week. I had to go to junkyard to throw out, or recycling center or whatever, to
Yep.
throw out three development kits of VR.
No.
VR development kits. And because I've saved the first Oculus Rift, I bought the first one that was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kickstarted.
Right.
And then I had the one that was the first one with positional tracking, that you had to put up a camera for it to track you. A single camera.
Yeah, okay.
And if you turn around, it lost your tracking. And then I also have had the absolute first a development kit of the HTC Vive.
Okay.
It wasn't even HTC. It was actually Valve who made them
Right.
themselves.
It was like Steam branded. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, it didn't even come with a cover on most of the things. It was like open electronics, half of it. And it's just like, you look at it and it's so nostalgic, but it's just a complete piece of crap, technologically speaking, right now. So it's like, and it takes so much space. I'm like, I don't know. What do I do with it? I gotta just throw it out.
Dang, I wonder if there was like maybe like any secondhand market where like someone on eBay or something like might want to buy it as just kind of like a historical piece to have.
I mean, specifically that one, the first Vive, maybe, but it was also very used. It was like,
Okay.
It was, not holding well. The thing was that those Vives, they were like, they worked, but you could like, the controller, the long thing, they had like this long controller with like a hat on top. It looked like a hat. It was before they made a ring thing.
Okay. I'm familiar with the ring one, but yeah.
Yeah, but this one earlier, it very much looked like a hat. Maybe I can find a picture of it later. And you could take the whole controller. Something. Yeah, you could take the whole controller, and it was such a bad plastic that you could twist it like 10 degrees. You could twist the whole thing 10 degrees.
Like it just had like super bad tolerance on it.
Yeah. Everything was just flimsy and super thin plastic, and it was just... Do you find anything?
I just typed in HTC Vive original controller, and it looks like it's just kind of the ring ones.
I think it's. I think you need to just Steam VR original dev controller, maybe. Let me see here. It's. I mean, it's so goddamn old that like.
Well, and so
Steam...
if it only came with like the developer kits or something, like was it not really like a publicly like a consumer
it was
product?
far from publicly released. It was like I had to sign like a bunch of NDAs to be able to use it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this one, let's see here. I found something. There's actually one picture of it on Wikipedia. I'll write it in the chat here. Or maybe it wasn't Wikipedia, actually. It was just a Wikipedia type.
I wish.
You can put it up on the screen, maybe. You're better with the streaming service.
Oh, yeah. Let me have to grab the link from here. Oh, wow. That is very strange. Okay. So do share this tab here. Wow, look at that.
Yeah. So you see,
What is going
like,
on there? Are
yeah.
these like little LEDs or something?
Yeah, if you look at the ring one, you will see small indents, and those you see those little dots?
Yeah.
That's what's behind those.
Oh.
So it's the same tech. It's like reverse triangulation.
Okay.
So like yeah, it was I could go through the actual theory of how the triangulation worked, because I read up on them, but it's like that's maybe not that relevant. But it's those are just photo sensors that read a laser, a dumb laser that doesn't, the one that you put up, the lighthouses that they call them.
Right.
They don't have any logic. They just sync with each other, so they have the same like pulsing. And then they're not connected to the PC. So these are just these are like mini GPS systems.
Okay.
That's sort of how they work. Yeah. Anyway, I had that, and I just threw that one away because it doesn't show it, but the plastic is so flimsy, it's crazy, and it was
It
so
kind of
loose.
looks like it, to be honest. Like it just
Yeah.
looks like really thin plastic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess that's like if you're like prototyping something out, like you're not gonna have like super thick, like high quality plastic. Like you're probably gonna want to use like some super cheap thing, because you're probably going through like a bunch of like iterative designs, and it's like
I sort of think part of that kit they sort of hand built at Valve.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems kind of like a Valve thing to do.
Yeah, I have another picture. Let me see if I can. You have the open in new tab. No, that was the wrong one. The other, if you have a picture of the Vive HMD, the headset, they also have the indents on it, because you gotta track the headset too, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the funny thing that the original dev version didn't have the cover over that, so you saw like the whole guts of everything. And like when I saw it the first time, I was like, I asked my friend who had picked it out of the box, like, why haven't you put it all together? And like, this is it. They didn't come with any cover. So it was like electronic boards on it all over the place. So yeah.
So now these little indents, is this a kind of like a little, maybe like a window type material on this little circle here?
Plastic.
So it's like enough where light can go through to get to the sensor, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And so all of those three are tracked the same way, like that, reverse GPS sort of. It's a fascinating technology, and I think I would actually, if we didn't like go crazy with the inside out camera tracking that all of the Quest and stuff had, this would be honestly the best way, because it's like you can cover such a huge space with this technology. And like inside out tracker also works obviously nowadays. You can have like infinite, but this was like super accurate and super large area. And compared to the
because you always have like a fixed point you can rely on, basically. You don't need to like worry about having the cameras do any type of tracking and sync that up with any of the accelerometer data or any of that.
No pixel or like camera image to decode in real time, which is super hard, tough problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like triangulation, that's it. That was all.
I'm sure a lot more simple calculations to do.
Yeah. So and also like the laser, out of not in visible light, so you could actually do this in the dark. Oh well, I could use like infrared light, basically. And like it wouldn't matter if it was visible light or not. It's just that since it was actually active photon generation and not cameras that just take in stuff, then you didn't have to have any lights on.
Right. Yeah. Like if I use my Quest, like if it's like at nighttime and I have the lights off in the room, it'll say like too low,
Yeah,
it's having
exactly.
trouble like picking up
Exactly.
tracking. Yeah.
And it's getting progressively worse tracking because the shutter speed needs to be slower if you are having the cameras sort of have
because
to
it's got to
adjust
be open for longer. Yeah.
to be able to so
Makes
there
sense.
is
I
like
didn't think of that. Yeah.
yeah, so the more you brighten your room up, the better quality of tracking you will get.
Right.
So, and this was like completely irrelevant to that. Just worked
Yeah.
perfectly all the time out of the box. So I sort of miss it a little bit, but I think it looks like everybody going for the camera inside out tracking nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fair enough. I get it, but it was still cool tech.
No, it definitely is. Yeah.
So that brings back memories, even though it was 2012, so not that far long ago. But and I'm gonna ask you. Well, I want to know yours, but let me just end with my first NES that I actually picked apart and destroyed the day, like 4 days after I got my Nintendo 64. So I had a NES, and I played Mario Bros. and all a bunch of.
Do you guys call it NES over in Europe?
Yeah, we NES, I guess.
Yeah. We usually say NES,
Yeah.
but or like especially like the difference, or I know a lot of ones that people get hung up on is SNES versus SNES.
Yeah, we call it SNES, that's for sure.
SNES.
But NES I think is NES. Yeah, that's
we usually say either NES or the Nintendo.
Or some people say the original Nintendo sometimes.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had that, and I had like 5 games, so it was wasn't a major.
Yeah.
My
like
parents
Mario,
didn't bother
Duck
to buy me a
Hunt,
bunch of yeah. And then we had the Duck Hunt, obviously, and I remember I got the PlayStation Nintendo 64 with the GoldenEye and Super Mario Super Mario 3D or whatever, and I played that for a few days, and obviously I played it like a maniac for like a year.
I mean,
but
talk about like a kid growing up and just having those 2 games. I mean, that'll
satisfy you for a long time,
for years.
Yeah. Nowadays it's crazy. But I remember like there was just like I don't think it was even a week after I was so curious what's inside the NES, so I picked it apart. I was like, what could I be, like 11 or something? I picked it apart, and I quickly realized that like looking at a green circuit board is very uninteresting if you're 11 years.
There's not a whole lot you can like really learn from. Like, okay, that's a microchip.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. But I didn't know. I just like, this is like a tech or something. I just looked at it and I was like confused. Like, all right, nothing here, I guess. Well, I was still fascinated. I was still to some degree fascinated. Like everything is in these like green and black things.
Yeah.
Like, and then
really
I
cool,
was a few hours of that confusion, and then like, all right, back to GoldenEye, and then I forgot about it. And then like 5 or 8 years later, something like when I went to college, I guess would be the equivalent. My friend, like, we talked about it, and then like we're like, and I found the old picked apart thing in a drawer at home, and I was like, because then I realized that would have been fun to have that still working. And I was so sad that I broke because it was not working anymore. It was missing parts and shit, So so that's also a memory where fascination with hardware pulled me a little bit too far almost. Yes. How about you?
Yeah, when I was like thinking about some things that I want to talk about this, kind of funny that you bring up HTC, because I wanted to talk about like some of the cell phones that I had, and I had a couple of cool HTC ones. So actually the first phone that I had, I'm sure many people had one of these, the Motorola Razr, baby.
Ooh, the flippy.
So yeah, the original one right here. Did you ever have one of these?
I had a flip phone, but not the Razr. That wasn't that big in Europe.
Okay, these were huge in the US. I mean, this is like everybody had a Motorola Razr. This is like pretty much the equivalent of like what the iPhone is today.
Right. Yeah, I think I've actually, like, when they made the thing with the full touchscreen and foldable, a few years ago, they made
the new version of the Razr.
Yeah,
think
I
it's
don't know,
this.
somebody, yeah, something like that. It was earlier than that, I know, but yeah, the one in the second. That
Oh
one.
yeah.
When they made that one and released that one, I think I saw MKBHD or somebody talk about it and like
Probably yeah.
explained how big of a deal, and I was like, oh, really? That was the first time I realized that this was like the
Oh yeah, you
the shit at that time.
load MP3s on there and have your custom ringtones and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff.
Well,
Play Doom.
Oh, you can play Doom on it?
I'm sure there was
Oh,
there was a way to get Doom working, but I mean
Yeah,
there was
for sure.
silly little games like that.
Yeah, but I just to point that out, like I think part of the reason why this wasn't that big in the EU because in Europe because we had the Swedish company Ericsson.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, like Sony Ericsson was a
Yeah, of
thing.
course. Yeah.
And Ericsson was a big phone manufacturer by themselves by
Right.
approximately the same time. They were like the first one to have like a phone with camera, Bluetooth, GPS. I don't know. There was like no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, camera, and color screen all at the same time, and like everybody was like, "Oh my god, Ericsson, that's the shit!" And everybody bought that. So I think that was part of the reason why we didn't see like they were just dominating the market, at least in like Scandinavian countries.
Yeah, that's funny that you bring up like having Bluetooth as a feature because I remember like with the Motorola Razr specifically, that was like one of the things that you would see on like the ads on TV for like you're like, oh, like it has Bluetooth. And then
Ooh,
the thing is, when it would always like show that on like the ads on TV or whatever, like it had the phone open like this. And I don't know if you can kind of see, but the keyboard has like a blue light behind it.
yeah.
So like I was always like so confused like what Bluetooth was. I thought it was like does it have something to do with like the backlights on the keyboard? Like what does that even what does that even mean?
And you were yeah. And how
Like, that was
old
like
were
the
you at
first
this
time.
point?
Probably like early teenager, like 12 to 14-ish.
Right. So yeah, it was still tech was have a confusion aspect to them for you as me at that age. Like
Right. Yeah.
something were mysteries because you couldn't really figure it out that easily when you couldn't
Yeah.
read. Yeah, well, when you couldn't.
It was also just different back then. I mean, like I was definitely like exposed to tech. Like I had like my dad got me like one of the little like electronics kits where you can like put a little microchip and wire up resistors and LEDs and stuff like that, and messed around with like the Lego Mindstorms and everything. But
that's good. That's good childhood stuff right there.
Oh yeah,
sure.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then anyways, the next one that I got after this one, I also just want to give a shout out to the Palm Pre. Were you familiar with this phone at all?
No.
So this is kind of like during the early days of like when the iPhone and original Android phones like just started coming out. So there's this brand called Palm, and they originally did like the kind of like the old school like PDAs where you have like a stylus and like would have to like do that kind of thing, like almost like an old school BlackBerry kind of thing. But then they came back and they made this phone called the Palm Pre, which it had its own like operating system separate from like Android or iOS or any of that stuff.
They tried that, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was actually a really cool phone because you can see it like slides up and you had a full, QWERTY keyboard under it. So it was like kind of cool to kind of like, I guess, bridge that gap for me, like going from texting off of like the Motorola Razr where you have like, the buttons.
Yeah, T9.
Like, I wasn't a fan of T9. I did the whole old school, like you press like,
yeah,
222 to get a C,
right? Nice. And then the QWERTY keyboard and like, oh my god, I can text.
Yeah. And then then it like I feel like that was a good transition to go from that to like then to like a full touch screen where you have like the full QWERTY layout like that. But no, this was really cool because it had like the tactile buttons and it was just like a cool phone. But yeah, then started getting into some of the HTC phones. So I think I had the HTC One 3D. Were you familiar with this phone at all?
No, but I had an early HTC. I had the HTC Hero.
So as you can
Oh,
see,
right. You have two.
this
Was
has two cameras, which is very common in phones nowadays, but this was not common, obviously
That's
back in the day.
crazy.
The reason
Yeah,
it
yeah,
has
yeah.
two cameras is because you could take 3D pictures and videos on this
And
phone
and view it how?
and view it on the phone. The phone had a 3D screen on it.
Was it
You
like a
didn't need any
parallax thing, like the
glasses.
3DS on Nintendo
Yeah,
3DS?
it's exactly like a 3DS. Yeah.
Ah, was it getting good?
It actually worked like surprisingly decent. I mean, it wasn't like anything where like, like, oh my gosh, this is VR, right? Like,
You
I
couldn't
mean,
really. Yeah, you didn't have to be cross-eyed to see it or something like
yeah,
that.
You could look at
You
it
could
pretty
just,
normal, and like you could get some like good depth out of like,
yeah,
just any pictures that you would take around the house.
yeah.
And yeah, it's also really cool because as you can kind of see down here, it actually had a physical camera shutter on it. So you could like hold it down halfway and it would like kind of like focus in on whatever you're pointing
Oh,
at,
the
and then you could
halfway thing. That's
click
pretty
down.
nifty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I almost, if I can find a phone that is small and has still a dedicated camera button, I will buy that. Dedicated camera button I've had on every phone that I've been able to get my hands on, because that matters to me. I want to have but not on
Yeah.
my current one because they stopped doing it. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I think it's a good idea.
I know the physical buttons are cool.
Yeah. I just realized I can send it here. This is an Ericsson phone, and I just gotta point out how anticlimactic it is with today's standard. So,
Wait, oh, you shared it in here. Okay.
yeah, I just thought I wouldn't. We can look at it like this instead.
Look at this. Look at this piece
So-
of
so-
technology, my
yes,
friends.
but nowadays it's very funny because like you're like ooh, and you see the hinge on the numpad, and then like you're like expecting a bigger touch screen or something, and I'm like, oh, there's a QWERTY keyboard underneath.
And this is just like blank right here. This is just blank plastic.
Yeah. So that's like the level of innovation that they were doing, and like for the time, this was hot stuff.
I mean, this like view right here, that looks like an old school like digital camera.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like it's
yeah,
about
for
like
sure.
it looks like about like the thickness of a digital camera too.
Yeah, 100%.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So that's I think they probably made a bunch of good. There was a reason why they dominated our market. Oh, I know this. It's not that relevant, but opening image. Let's see here. Okay, final one. This instead, I send you another link. That type of phone everybody had when I was when not exactly, but that's
the
like
cyber shot.
That this big normal big quote unquote color screen and the QWERTY normal numpad like that, and then exactly that layout with just a bunch of different designs and
this
colors.
was like back in the day where like megapixels were like a huge marketing thing.
Yes.
So you see 3.2 megapixels, which
And
actually is pretty good.
I think this was like barely 1.3, barely 1024 in like
resolution. You mean? Yeah.
So, but this is everybody had a Sony Ericsson in this type of general shape. Not me. I had a Samsung, but I wasn't cool enough to have a Sony. So yeah, old phones, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Then there's one more that I want to mention. The HTC One. This was a very cool one.
I remember this.
It had a really cool party trick on it that I loved, which you can see the lock button is up on the top here. Yeah, that's what phones used to do. That
right.
had the lock button kind of on the top here.
Yeah.
Special thing about this lock button, there was an infrared blaster behind it, so you could use an app on your phone to remote control televisions. Which was just the coolest thing to do when you're out like at a bar or whatever, and then like you want to like change the channel on a TV. You don't have to like ask the waiter or anybody. You can just like pull out your phone and do it yourself. Which I use that all the time.
You used it all the time?
Oh yeah. Oh wow. It's also just like a funny thing to do where like you're like in a public place and like people are watching a TV and you just like turn it off.
but wait a minute. So didn't a lot of phones had like some IR thing. But that was it like a built-in app where you can like browse for the specific codes?
So yeah, I don't remember. I think there was like an app that came with the phone. And then you could also download third-party apps that would like take full advantage of it too.
Oh, okay. So it was yeah. All right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's crazy. So I bet you annoyed some people with it at least, right?
It was a funny thing to have. And then
Yeah.
real quick. I just see Mr. Awesome calling out the Google Cardboard.
That was times.
I got a Simpsons branded Google Cardboard.
Damn.
So yeah, if you guys aren't familiar with these, basically you slide a phone into the side, and you can load up certain VR apps, and then you can kind of view them through the little lenses that you get. It doesn't get any like head tracking side to side, but you have like rotational head tracking. So it's like it was a cool way for me as a broke college student to try VR and VR development for a little while. So
It was
cool.
a good introduction.
Yeah, it totally was.
Yeah. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I send you a third one. I'm sorry. I just had to. You're gonna be what?
This is
the
fascinating.
Fuck? This is
The
Nokia. Yeah. My stepbrother had the one with the swivel.
The swivel.
That's crazy. Like, how many times can you swivel that before everything just falls apart? I don't know. Probably not that much.
Oh my gosh.
And then that phone down to the right.
Yeah, what is this?
Yes, Nokia had some fun ideas in the late 2000s.
Yeah, there were definitely some like really weird phones, especially as like because there was kind of that like time period where phones like kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller to like the point where you could like basically fit them on a keychain.
Yeah,
and then like Apple kind of flipped that when they like had the iPhone, and then it started kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger again.
Yeah, it's kind of a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they don't need to be that much bigger, but I'm not fond of the big phones. But yeah,
you don't want your Huawei trifold phone?
No, this is what I have. This is the size. I have small hands even, so like, that's enough for me.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
Well, maybe we should get into some actual game development topiks here 30 minutes into the show.
Sorry, guys. It's so nostalgic.
Oh yeah. No, there's some cool tech out there. So yeah. Anyways, what is going on over in Hot Path Show land? Okay, miscellaneous announcements. Do I have a tab open for this? I do have a tab open somewhere, but I don't know where. I think it's on another browser screen. So a little while ago, some of you may recall that, gosh, yeah, I must have put this somewhere. But yeah, anyway, so we did a Dots Game Jam a little while back. And actually, I wanted to pull this up because someone who participated in the Game Jam actually released their game. They kind of like took it a little bit further than they did in just the regular Game Jam, and actually brought it to a release. So let me see if I can find, because okay, here we go. Here we are. So yeah, this was the game called Tic Tac No. So some of you may remember this. It's basically you kind of play on a grid, and then you basically select these different cells on the grid to highlight them either red or blue. And then the idea is you don't want to get a tic-tac-toe. So you see in this case, they have 3 reds across the top. So that's kind of like a failure condition. So you basically want to like light up every cell. Like you can see down here as you're kind of going through, there's like some of the gray blocks here. So you basically want to light up all the cells on the screen, but you don't want to ever get 3 in a row. So it can be, you know, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, whatever.
That makes sense. Yep.
And then, yeah, so they actually kind of polished the game up a little bit more. And, you know, there's some actually kind of like cool effects and music and sound effects and stuff as part of the game. And yeah, it's a full complete game. It is available on the Windows Store, iOS Store, and Mac App Store.
Windows Store. Oof,
Shout out to the Windows Store.
It's still living.
It is still living.
Okay.
But yeah, and yeah, also, by the way, the game is fully open source, so you can go to the source code over on GitHub over here and review the source code of the game if you'd like to. But yeah, just wanted to give a little shout out to Tic Tac No. I thought it was really cool that you know, one of the games from our Turbo Makes Games Dots Game Jam has now been fully released into a game, which is exciting stuff. That's
I would not have bet on that, to be honest. That's very, very nicely done.
Yeah. And so speaking of the kind of game jams and community challenges and stuff like that, I think I'm going to be announcing the dates for the community challenge on the show next week. So yeah, I want to try and squeeze one more community challenge in before the end of the year. So just, yeah, gonna finalize the dates on that and let you all know next week. Yeah, and then what else we got going on?
Hopefully I'm not crazy busy with Zolfer and can participate properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted to share, Unity is hosting a introduction into distributed authority for client-hosted multiplayer games webinar. I'll go ahead and post a link to this over here in the chat so y'all can sign up for that if you'd like to. But basically it's kind of a webinar where they're going into, they kind of have 3 different types of multiplayer. So there's, you know, like dedicated server where it's all server authoritative, or there's kind of like a more peer-to-peer networking model. And so this is kind of the distributed authority, which is the third kind of newer one that they're coming up with. So I know some people are interested in multiplayer development, and so yeah, this is kind of their new sort of initiative. Looks like it still is in beta as of Unity 6. But yeah, this webinar is happening next Thursday at 12 noon Eastern. Have you seen anything on this distributed authority networking model before?
No, you mean Unity specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm kind of like, I'm confused exactly what this entails. Because like distributed, that would mean like, oh, somebody has an authority.
Well, so it's I think the idea is there's not like one single host. Like the hosting essentially responsibilities can kind of be distributed across either all or maybe some of the clients who are connected.
To me, well, and I'm sure that I am well, I don't understand the full context of this, but to me, it's like if you don't have centralized authority on some other machine than the player, then there is no point in calling it authority in my mind. So it's like I assume that somebody is deciding some stuff, but yeah, it's just confusing to me. Like if you have this, like what are they deciding that somebody else can just cheat around then, or something like that? It's like you need like a, or you know, if it's an authority that has some, you know, decision making to do, and somebody else cannot do it, then like that person obviously has a, you know, upper hand in the latency equation thing, if it's a real-time game. So it's just a confusing thing to me, but I should read up more on that, because like obviously there's something good stuff here, otherwise Unity won't put the energy into it. So yeah, I'm curious.
Right. Yeah. Again, I can't speak on it too much. I don't have a whole lot of familiarity with it. I've just kind of, seen what they've announced at some of their press conferences and stuff on this. And yeah, again, just kind of seems like another option for, having another networking model that probably, works well for certain types of games, and maybe not as much for others. I think maybe, yeah, I guess maybe watch the webinar and they might have some more examples of some kind of better use cases for this kind of distributed authority networking model. But nonetheless, I do think it is kind of an interesting thing, and should be an interesting webinar, I think.
I'm sure there's some nice nuggets for network game development in there for most people, or for most people who are interested in it.
Yeah, I definitely would think so. And so, by the way, latest on Dots Survivors. So yeah, if you didn't already know, Dots Survivors is the game/asset store project that I am working on. Go ahead and go over here, show you the little logo of Dots Survivors right here. So it's going to be available on Steam for free. Unfortunately, still don't have the Steam page available for you. They came back to me and said that my 3-sentence description on the About Me section apparently wasn't enough. So I guess that's what happens when you try to throw together a Steam page at like 2 a.m.
Yeah. There's more to it than one would think. There's a bunch of bureaucracy.
So I went to the Steam page for your game, just to read the instructions, and I basically just copied and pasted everything over. No, I'm kidding. I just looked at yours and then like put like about as much content and put some like kind of images and stuff in there. So I'm hoping it'll be enough to.
Yeah. I remember when I made when me and my former colleague made ours, and we were like, oh, we got to get it up. It was conference like in 2 days or something, and we wanted to get it approved so we could share and get wish list before the conference.
Yeah.
And we were like in like 6 in the afternoon or evening, and like, all right, let's just throw it together and like pay the goddamn $100 or whatever. Yeah. And then like 5 minutes later, we were like knee deep into this wizard about to put in, like, oh Jesus Christ, there's so much stuff, we're never gonna be able to make it.
Well, and also like with all the like assets that they ask for, they're in like very specific resolutions, so you need to like create all new graphics for them, and
it's but About Me, I guess that's for you as a publisher or developer.
Oh, sorry, the About This Game section.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Because the amount of information you need to pull about the company or something, that wasn't that bad, but like
that seemed pretty minimal. Yeah,
the amount of artwork and stuff, random stuff that you need to, that's annoying as hell. Yeah.
But so that is kind of where that's at. If you are following me on the social medias, I did share a little picture of some kind of concept art of a couple new aliens that are going to be available in the game as well.
Nice. I like the non what do you call it, non-political political post you had.
Oh yeah. Vote data oriented.
I'm like, yes. I approve of this message.
I'm Tobias and I approve this message.
Yes. All right, continue.
Damn, Tobias.
Crazy.
But I will keep you all posted on what is going on with that. Let's see what else. And then you can support us over on Patreon as well as through YouTube memberships if you'd like. We do have some additional bonus content available for you over there. So I just put up a bonus video that's available to all supporters, again, across YouTube subscription memberships and the Patreon supporters as well. And basically, you might have seen a couple weeks ago when Danny was talking to us about Odin and Raylib. I showed off a little Odin solitaire game that I was working on just to kind of like learn the Odin programming language and all that. So I kind of expanded off that project a little bit more, kind of basically finished it out. It's in a fully playable state. Basically, it's kind of playable through the command line, but it's cool. And Yeah, so I basically did a video kind of like just walking through, how I kind of structured the code and stuff. I mean, it is a little bit of a mess because, again, it's my first experience with learning Odin. But yeah, just kind of did a little walkthrough and showing like some of the things that I liked about Odin and just kind of how the project works in general. And then I also did a little Q&A episode where we had a question about Unity version control. So I talked a little bit about that. So yeah, again, check that out over on Patreon as well as YouTube memberships. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and get into some of the actual ECS topics of discussion here. So well, actually more Unity developments. It sounds like you have a quick tip for us that's
yes, heresy. I'm going back to all now. No, this is actually editor things that is really actually nice to know, even if you just work on dots.
Yeah. No, editor tips and tricks are always welcome here. So what do you got for us this week?
Yes, let's first do the Russian roulette of sharing my screen.
Oh, gosh.
Let me just fix my see here.
By the way, have you seen that Russian roulette game that's like on Steam, like kind of like popular?
Oh, the one that I
Liar's Bar or something.
I only saw it through Video Game Donkey review. He made a just random video. You're like playing as animals.
Yeah,
in a dark room.
Like a pig and like a wolf or something. And
I haven't seen that game. I just randomly ran across that YouTube clip. It looked hilarious.
I'm pretty sure it's a Unity game as well.
Oh yeah, that looks like something you could make in Unity pretty easily. Or well, not of the different engines. Unity seems to be the a preferred way of doing that. All right, let's see here. See if I get disappeared. Get disappeared.
Get disappeared. You sound like you're like some political target or something.
Woohoo! Okay, let me see here if I can move over. Now I will have you over here. Barely see you behind my softbox, but it will be fine. All right. So let me do the introduction here. So this is just don't spoil it. Can't show it. It's just a quick. So just 3 small things. I'm sure that some people maybe know all of them or know one of them, but all of these guys I use regularly, and and one of them is kind of underappreciated, I think, and I don't think people realize how easy it is to do. So first of all, let's see here. We have an editor tricks script. Share my screen again. There we go. Can you see, or do I need to increase the size again?
I think it's probably about at the minimum of what we would want it to be.
I can go ahead one more step if I can do that. Let's not dox myself here. Well, I don't have anything to really to be. There's just random shit on my computer that 175. Maybe that will work. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
That's gotta be a little bit. So the actual the actual data here doesn't matter. Obviously, it's just a contrived example.
Outside.
Yeah. What?
It's a blizzard outside for me right now. I think that's blind. Sorry, go ahead.
Hopefully your power stays on and we don't lose
it'll
you.
Be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So editor tricks. So it's a random script here. We can ignore on off for now. We just take a look and see, like, we have some values here. We need really to keep track of this. These are important values.
Right. Your designers spend a lot of time handcrafting each of these values.
Yes. Statistical models in Excel and shit.
Oh, yes.
Yes, but I've spelled list wrong in data list. And my OCD is just screwing with me all the way. So I'm like, how do I do this? So we have this serialized list here. The structured data, and we have value 1, value 2, and then we have this list here, and it's wrongly spelled. So we want to do like this. But if we do that, we will lose track of the data because it will rename in the
thinks
it's
a new variable, basically.
It will be a new variable, and we lose all of our data. So there's 2 ways to do this. If you are like an API, like assets in an asset store, there is something called formerly serialized as, and then you can put in the old name, and then you can rename it. And that does it. So I don't know if people realize that's a thing, but that's a thing. And Unity uses it all the time when they upgrade their internal systems. And because you're like, oh, I want to upgrade this name because it's a stupid name, and I don't want to break all of the features that people built on my code. Then you do it like this, right?
Yep.
The way I use, continue.
Before you move on, undo that. Go back to basically the starting state.
Yeah. Oh.
So take
Is
that
there,
out too. So I see that you're using JetBrains Writer now, which is very exciting.
I actually started just now because I'm like, no, I gotta just do it, and Johnny will be disappointed if I don't try it, and I am probably gonna be mad at myself in 2 weeks when I converted myself. I'm like, why didn't I do this earlier? I'm just lazy, and this color scheme messes with my productivity.
Okay.
Yes.
So put your cursor on data LSIT.
Yeah.
Click on it. Like put your actual text cursor on there, and then hit Alt Enter, and then go ahead and I think actually if you scroll down a little bit, there is the typo rename too. I don't know if that'll work, but scroll down to the bottom of that context menu. Go to refactor this. And then rename.
Yeah, that I know.
So click on it though.
Yeah.
And then
oh, you mean oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So yeah, you should be able to change that, and then if you hit next. So yeah, it automatically adds that in. But there is a way that I think you can expose a checkbox for it. Like if you want to add the formally serialized attribute or not.
Okay, so it was that attribute added through automatic.
Yeah. Writer automatically added that for you.
Yeah, and that's nice, and that's why I should use Writer. I didn't know that, so that's nice. I had no idea, but yeah, but I hate those kind of lingering pieces of code that just legacy reasons why they are there. I just remove everything I can, even if it means so. And this is tiny trick, but I thought formally serialized and this trick could be a nice thing. So what I usually do when I don't have people relying on this and I know everywhere this is set, then I do like this, and I reload it. And then I have both, and I do copy, paste, save it, rename it, next, and let's pretend that it didn't put that in automatically now, and then remove the old one. That's just a simple little thing that I always do. I'm like, oh shit, I named it.
So why do you okay.
Because
because you got to rename all the usages of
exactly.
It.
So first of all, I'm making a copy with the right so I have both of them. So I can copy the data from the already existing wrong spelled one and paste it into the right spelled one. And then I rename the old one to catch all the usages. And both Writer and Visual Studio complains about that I'm having a name conflict, but they still allow me to change it to that name. And then I just delete one of them. So that's the way I always do that. If I have less than 5 different places or less than 10 different places to copy over the data.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, so what I actually end up doing is because again, it's super easy with Writer how it adds you can have it automatically add the formally serialized as attribute, right? So I'll do that in the code, go back over to Unity, refresh Unity, let it serialize with the new name. And then I just come back to Writer and just remove the attribute.
I didn't That makes sense because it will look for it, but it won't care about it in the future because everything will be really it will just pick up the old serialized with the old name and then push it into the new name. I feel
it works like 99% of the time. Every once in a while, like for some reason, the serialization doesn't work.
That's Unity serialization trigger system with like refreshing dirty, and I don't know how exactly. I just know that it's like there is some bells and whistles to it, how it determines what prefabs it's gonna go through and reserialize.
Yeah.
So in Sulfur, for example, there's several times when I like change something, and then 2 days later I'm going through some baking step which just touches every file, and then I get like 200 changes because all of those got the default value serialized into them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then good tip. I didn't think about that, but that makes total sense. Obviously, in the editor, it will pull out the old data and then reserialize it as the new tag.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was just like,
I completely agree. I don't like having all those like attributes that like are it's a meaningless attribute because like
it's just a reminder
it's
that
basically
your
just
shit
saying
is
like,
coming.
hey, I didn't know how to spell list.
yes, or I have too much dyslexia to see the difference.
Yeah.
That's mostly my case. I'm not that dyslexic or anything, but I have a hard time seeing when you're swapping two letters in a word. That just doesn't trigger my brain often. So that happens a lot for me. Okay, so that was it. Let me go through. I'm realizing that we're, as always, taking more time with each of these guys, but we'll see. Maybe we'll. The next thing, small thing, if you have editor scripts, so like a menu item, obviously is a. Can you? Oh, that was unnecessary. Let's not do that. What? What's going on? Why is this? What did I push?
Where's the thing to hide it? No, it's I think you clicked like the like code authoring view thing.
Show diff? No.
No. Let me see if I can see what you clicked in the replay.
What?
I think you clicked.
Is there a view button somewhere I can view appearances, toolbars?
Oh yeah, you clicked your name on. I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think you accidentally clicked. Like you see how it has your name, like above like the data struct and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. In Git integration, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. This menu item is obviously an editor thing. So, and if you don't want to have like, the Unity editor thing, do you do this often where you put the include in?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those who doesn't realize, it's kind of annoying to have to put that behind everywhere to just use something, and you don't want to create a new file in an editor assembly or in an editor directory. So then you can do that thing where you just do that in the beginning and just have a simple little Unity editor include. And the only thing is that you can't sort them now with the automatic sorting and removing old ones anymore. You have to like remove that to make it able to do the sorting and stuff. Well, now I actually don't know how to do that in Rider, so never mind. When it's grayed out, it should be able to be automatically realize, I don't need this, and you can.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I recognize it. Is I see if it's grayed out, I'll just remove it manually.
Yeah, in Visual Studio, you just have like a quick button here, just remove and sort using. And then this one, so this could be a very, very deep rabbit hole to go into, but I'm just going to go over, and people, since you have your stuff to show also, modifying prefabs with editor script, with your own editor script, is a lot easier than you think if you haven't done it. So I recommend everybody who works on tooling to go deep into actually how prefabs are loaded and worked on in Unity. As I said, this is a bigger top.
Yeah, I was gonna say this almost sounds like this could be a full like dedicated topic.
Maybe I should make a small overview of this, and then in 2 weeks, when probably I'm on again, I'll have this as a main topic, and I go through all the nooks and crannies.
That actually sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I can just do a quick little tease.
Give a little preview, yeah.
Yes. So selection is an editor, static editor class that through this you can like get, oh, I'm not used to how Rider does this. We will have to do this like this. So game objects, active objects, anything you have selected in the project view in the Unity editor, that will show up in one of the different arrays or objects here. So it has some shorthands. You can have like just objects, then it finds, if you have a selected material, it will find it there also. But then you need to filter it and make sure that whatever you're working on, if you accidentally have something selected that's not the type of data you're gonna do transformation on, then you need to filter for that. But that's just simple filtering. So for example, here I'm taking all the objects that I have, I'm pulling it out, and then I'm looking, do I have this editor tricks mono behavior on it? If I don't have it, then I just skip this one and continue. And then as a database, this pulls out the prefab path. So just straight up the path on the disk. And then you can use prefab utility to load this into memory. And this is exactly the same that happens when you double click a prefab and you have like your the scene view is just filled with an open prefab. This is the exact same mode that Unity uses. And then you can do stuff with it, like literally exactly the same as working on it manually through the editor, but you're doing it through the code. So everything you expect to be doing with the mouse, you can do it here with code. So just to show this example, open prefab, I take out this thing, and then this editor script that I have, I look if it's got a Boolean and if it doesn't have a child. And if that's the case, I create the child and put it underneath the prefab root. And then I save it again. Save as prefab asset into the path, and then I unload. So I save it, the press save button you are using, and then go out of the prefab mode. That's exactly the same, just represented with code. So we can just take a look what that means. Prefab 1, 2, 3. So straight up, very, very simple. Some objects here, just different meshes, so you can see the difference between them.
Yep.
And then one of them, here we have the prefabs. So in this case, you have to actually select the prefabs because in the hierarchy, that's not really the same as the actual prefab on disk.
It's kind of an instance considered. It's not the actual, yeah, and
that's a deep. The prefab instantiating system is like gigantically complicated, so that shouldn't. But if you just focus on the project view, it's not that complicated. But one of them has this Boolean put in on/off, the same as I have here. Component on/off.
Mm-hmm.
So when I select all of these three, tools change prefab value, because that's the thing I have up here.
Mm-hmm.
Tools change prefab, pop, and I got my little extra only on that one.
Because that one had the check mark, basically.
Yeah, that one has the on/off. The other ones doesn't have, or the prefabs here. And if I do it again, I don't get it, because the child count is not longer 0. So you can do like actual, like pretty dynamic, pretty complicated asset setup systems, or asset, like in software. This is very handy because there's a bunch of stuff that I need to just streamline for them in the assets. So there's hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, maybe thousands of lines of code I've written to just like try to make the game into the most optimal format exactly through this method. So yeah,
that's really great. I'm sure. Yeah, you guys have a bunch of prefabs, and you want to, again, kind of do a little bit
Yeah.
of analysis on them and kind of make sure they're all conforming to some specific configurations.
Yes. And also there's like this is like a super easy for us as dots used to people, like nothing is free. And if you're a game designer or a programmer and starting with Unity and you come from an object-oriented world, then maybe you think of game objects as just this building block that you can just have fun with, build whatever. And then you end up with like 5 times as many game objects than you actually need, deep hierarchy level, because like, oh well, I put a root here, and then I have like this offset object, and then I have the actual object, and then underneath that, then I can have the different all the different colliders in different game objects, and then like all of that can be reduced to a single game object. And when performance is of a concern, then you're like, all right, let's write some code that just collapses this together into very few, as few objects as possible. So
Yeah,
that's
smart. Yeah.
one of the things I've been writing a lot, and it's tricky to not make it break. That I can tell you.
I could imagine.
I broken.
Because there's always like a lot of weird edge cases that you need to consider, and
Yeah. But for those, and like I said, a lot of people already probably coded a lot of editors scripting. But for me, I hadn't worked on modifying or changing like a prefab inherently like deeply through code before this project. And now that I've been doing it for like almost 6 months, I'm like, damn, there's so much stuff that you can do easier if you just like code a good editor script with it. Like so many prefab manipulation things that you end up doing 1,000 times during a project, and you can just make a button for it instead. Yeah. So, and if your designer comes to you and like, this system thing we're doing is just super annoying, and like I need to do all of these game objects and everything, like make a button for him, make a button, just press it, and then just do everything in code that it needs to be done. So that's very powerful. All right.
You can even use ChatGPT to write your own editor scripting.
ChatGPT preview, and you can write whatever. Wait a minute, I'm not. What does it mean? Preview, and you can write whatever.
Just use ChatGPT to write editor scripting.
Oh yeah. I use that's
which exactly, I think it's a good way to automate.
That's
things.
Super good. Yeah.
Because it is a lot of kind of repetitive code and
100%. And there's like so many times when like the way it's like, oh, I have this thing and I need to figure out if it's like a variation prefab or if it's an original prefab instance, or if it got overrides, or if it's just an instance of a game object inside of another prefab, to be able to determine if I should clean it up in a specific way. That's the kind of situation I've been in like 100 times now. Like, I need to keep track of all the changes but still reduce the complexity. And then like just explaining that whole concept to ChatGPT, like, so I'm inside a prefab and I have a prefab instance inside of that prefab, and it's based on a variation, and I need to check the original value, and and like, how do I do that? Like, often it doesn't write it perfectly, but often it's like points you into the right way to think about it, at least. Yeah, so super good. We wrote gas Unreal dots because Unity netcode. I'm not sure what that means.
GAS Unreal dots base entity netcode.
That's a mouthful. Yeah. Can you still say we wrote? Yeah. That's a good question. I guess that comes to like when a mathematician is using a calculator, can you still say that he calculated? I mean, obviously it's not the same thing, but it's like getting there to like, what's a tool?
I think the thing different with LLMs is just because like it is almost the collective knowledge of all of its training data. So
Yeah.
like, you're still putting in input and getting output, but I guess the way that it computes that output, there's contributions that went into it outside of like just designing the how the calculator works.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't equate them completely. A calculator to ChatGPT, that's not the same thing, just a level above tool. But I see some sort of an argument that, like, we're gonna get better and better tools that makes us more and more productive. And the argument about where the information is coming from with ChatGPT is very relevant and doesn't at all apply to a calculator, obviously. So they are distinctly different, but they're still like, I mean, I did XYZ. Well, what tools did you have? How much do you have to do yourself for it to be you who did it? It's a philosophical question, I guess.
Yeah. I think the question is, as old as time. There's always like, a lower level that you can go. Are you like designing the programming language that you're using or the operating system that you're running on?
Yes,
it's like,
I said Carl Sagan.
I mean,
if you want to,
got to draw the line somewhere, right?
Yeah. But it's the Carl Sagan quote, like, if you want to make an apple pie from scratch, you got to invent the universe first. Oh. Did you hear that now?
Something came through a little bit.
Sometimes I'm curious to see how much this sounds when there's something else in the room, but it was just a phone that sounded, no problem.
Nice. Yeah. All right. It looks like GAS, Gameplay Ability System, copy from Unreal, but for netcode for entities. Interesting. Just read Unreal code and copy whole functionality.
Oh, wow.
Perfect, can handle 100,000 abilities, easy, same time, synced over network. Dang. MMO scale.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's good. Good stuff.
All right. Well, yeah, I think we can go ahead and talk about what I wanted to bring up here about. Actually, there was another little topic of discussion that I wanted to bring up, but maybe we can.
Yeah,
What?
Are we short on time? Well, I'm
no,
not.
Not really. I mean, I know it's late for you, but
no, it's fine. I've been turning my hours a little bit, so I'm not that. Okay. I'm not as tired as I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, maybe we'll save this for another time. I think it might be an interesting one to talk to you and Danny about. But actually, I was Mr. Awesome had replied to a tweet that I had posted. Actually, I had tagged you in it. I don't know if you had seen it, but
maybe.
It was just kind of like talking about data-oriented principles and stuff. But I think that might be an interesting one to talk to you and Danny about if we have a episode coming up where we have the three of us on.
You need to apply it like yeah.
Or do you want to talk about that now?
You still need to apply some principle. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I can talk about it now, but if you want to have Danny on, it's all
right. Well, I mean, we've been teasing it. Let's just get into it here.
Yeah. All right.
So I'll go ahead and pull this up here. So this kind of go ahead and share this here. So this originated from a tweet by the Primogen. He said, coding is just determining what type of spaghetti you enjoy. And then I had a response, which is data oriented is like raw spaghetti. Everything is separate and straightforward.
Yes. Like I think one of the engineers at Unity used to lining up the celery stalks to be able to chop a bunch of them at the same time as a metaphor for SIMD. But yeah, spaghetti straightened out in a separately. That's a
right. Yeah. I like it because again, everything is just kind of you're not all intertwining all these things like nasty spaghetti. It's like that just straight up raw spaghetti that you get, the uncooked spaghetti. everything's just
Yeah. So the when you break a spaghetti, it like always breaks in two places and flies up a middle piece. I don't know. There's some metaphor deep there for dots, I feel.
I love that. Yeah, well, we got to figure out what does it mean to actually break the spaghetti,
Yes.
and then
Yes. And what does the middle piece mean?
yeah, what is that little middle piece that flies off, and then you
Yes.
find it when you like clean out under your oven that like one time a year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, continue reading if you.
Okay, yeah. So then, Mr. Awesome replies here. You still need to apply some principles like single responsibility to it, or you get spaghetti in any paradigm. What principles and best practices are you finding to keep your code clean and flexible? So, I thought this was a good kind of interesting topic of discussion because, I like to kind of talk about some of the ECS and data-oriented architectures and things of that nature. So, is there anything that kind of resonates with you right off the bat? He mentions the single responsibility pattern. Is that, something that you kind of subscribe to as far as writing any data-oriented code, or do you kind of like take things in a little bit of a different direction? Like where does your mind go when you kind of read this comment here?
I don't really agree. You still need to apply some principle. No, you don't. Well, I see the point, and I'm not like, no, you're wrong. That's not the case, really. I'm just like, I think it's just always a lot more complicated and almost a lot more on case by case basis how you should even view like single responsibility. It's not even a good, well-defined term to begin with. Like I remember both my first programming teacher who couldn't program at all, and I think Uncle Bob, the dude who have like created the clean code paradigm, he has like this, a function should only do one thing. And like that statement is so nonsensical. It's like amazing. Like, no, first of all, and second of all, what is one thing? Like, and I don't equate this like obviously there's some sort of like you need to divide it up and you need to have some sort of cleanliness about not pulling, and I totally agree with, like, but it becomes like there's like a law like your different parts of the company will be reflected in the product as different APIs against each other. To some degree, different programmers will be like reflected in a few components in the game and will be interfaced against other components that's made by other programmers. And on that note, you need to have like a different responsibility. And often that's falls somewhere in between like the different sub-disciplines within the programming. Right? That's sort of, but still, like it's just so complicated, I think, to think about responsibility to begin with in code. Like, what is it to have responsibility or something? I think Mike Acton is a little bit like a trailblazer on like being kind of ruthless about the language about this. He's like, just write the piece of code that does it. And like, that doesn't scale too well, but to some degree, it's hard to just even reason about responsibility. Yeah, it's just, I think it's easier to like take a semi well written game and then retroactively apply an abstraction onto it that would somehow like pull it apart in different components and thus different responsibility. But like as you're writing it, it's just so fluid. So that's my long-winded answer for also agreeing that it should be divided as good as possible, but
Right.
it's just so hard.
No, and I think this is kind of a good related point. So the single responsibility is a principle and not a law. There are agrees to it.
That's fair.
So yeah, because I think we both have definitely seen people like take this to the absolute extreme where you're getting into the point of like 1 and 2 line functions where it's like what is the point of that? Because right, you have like your code that you're following along, and then it calls out into this one function that's like way lower down in the class file, or maybe in another completely different class file, and it's just like it makes it really difficult to just kind of like read and understand the code. That there's almost like kind of no purpose to like doing things that far. And I think when you kind of like read through the Uncle Bob's book, Clean Code, where he kind of talks about how functions should be like really small and like do just like one tiny little thing. It's not something that I resonate especially for like data oriented programming. I mean, a lot of the programming that I've been doing, it's more kind of, I guess, procedural is kind of like another term that I've heard for it, where it's like, you're just kind of, again, like you say, writing the code to do the thing. And sometimes I might end up having a system that is, 100, 200 lines long or more. But it is easy to read through because you're just kind of, going through it top to bottom. And that's not to say that I'm like against functions. There are certainly some times where like it makes sense to break some certain thing out into, its own function. Maybe you need to use it in a couple places, or there's kind of like some slightly different cases where you want to kind of handle things a little bit differently by some of the values that you pass into that function. But yeah, you're gonna say something?
It's putting into a function. I think also, like, I remember I saw some comment on one of our old podcasts that somebody complimented the look of my code. It was like aesthetically pleasing or something. And I thought about that, and I think like I put a lot of thought into making it look easy to digest, like readable, and that means to be aesthetically pleasing to some degree, and that includes like, oh, this will just flow through my understanding of code better if it's a function. Then I make it a function. It doesn't need to be a function. It can just be an indented scope, like whatever, an if statement, and then but no, it's just this, just like it just lines up nicely aesthetically if it's a function. Then I think, because my optimization for it when I write is like, I need to understand this at a glance 3 weeks from now when I forgot about what it's doing and there's a bug in it. So in that case, I also think like function has
just like doing a little bit of cleanup to help future you, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes. Cleanup for future me is like super important to me. That makes it so much easier for me to read my own code in the future. So just to add to reasons to have a function. Yeah. And so this one, do you understand? Have you heard of dry becoming ARID?
So I'm familiar. That's kind of a funny analogy because dry versus arid, but dry would be
arid.
Dry would be don't repeat yourself. But I don't know if I'm familiar with the acronym ARID.
No, me neither.
Anonymous Remote Identification of Unmanned Aerial Vehicles.
Active review. Well, he wrote now, active reviews for intermediate designs. Oh yeah.
Scenario where abstractions become overly complex to hinder development.
Active reviews for intermediate designs. I feel stupid. Why am I not understanding what does that?
Because you skipped your Scrum meeting this morning.
That's true. Well, can you skip a Scrum meeting if you didn't have one?
True.
No, but I'm sure. I'm just like what the acronym stands for doesn't really make connected to.
Well, I mean, I guess the explanation is more kind of what I'm going off of, where it's like, scenario where abstractions become overly complex to hinder development. So, I guess going back to this, it's like, if you don't repeat yourself, and then you start creating a lot of functions and abstractions, then
now with you.
You make abstraction to keep do not repeat yourself, but then it ends up getting too complex because you're, again, taking things too far, essentially.
Yeah. And that's a very good point, Mr. Awesome. That's exactly right. As you know, object-oriented programming has been like the status quo for so long, since like the late 90s, and that's where a lot of people like have learned their shops about programming. I feel like that problem is almost always the one that actually happens, as opposed to like, oh, this is so so procedural and just lines and lines of code just straight up. I feel like too complex because of abstractions to don't repeat yourself. That's part of the reason why it's abstract, right? But then when you pull in inheritance to keep yourself from repeating yourself, then it just goes bananas in my mind. And yes, holy shit, that's I think is the real issue. Yeah. I have had so many times when I look through source code and I just like keep, F12 is the button to go to definition in
Oh
Visual
yeah,
Studio,
yeah.
and I just keep pressing F12 like
Oh, that's
8
the worst.
fucking
That's the
stacks down.
worst.
I'm like, what is anything going on in this function?
Yeah, that happens. I've ran into that a lot, especially with the Meta's SDK for Unity.
Yeah. First of all, this amen, composition over inheritance. Yes.
We agree.
Yes. And also I've seen 7 levels deep of inheritance of types of point. Oh, so like point, like a position or something. Yeah, that's sad to my heart. I'm
Wow.
sad. Yeah. Was it I think a few episodes ago you talked about the dude who like made was it Animal Well,
Uh-huh.
like prohibited himself from making
Making the Vector 2 class.
class until he actually really needed it.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like an excellent exercise.
Yeah.
I would like to try to program like that one day.
That was kind of a little bit of the methodology that I was taking as I was making my little Odin solitaire game. It's just like, all right, let me just like write the code that does the thing. I'm not gonna I think I literally have like 3 data structures. I have one for like the play area, one for a card, and then one other one. But there's like no functionality on the data. Like it's literally just the data, and then I have the just one big file essentially that just does the whole game.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah,
I approve.
it was fun.
Yeah. I'm slightly curious about this one. Inheritance and data-oriented don't mix. Inheritance is an inherently code-oriented concept from developers who care more about code than data. True. I feel that. I don't want to like name names. Obviously, people don't know who I work with or whatever. It doesn't matter really, and it's not necessarily right now. But I work with people across my my 12 years in the industry now, and it's like you look at code and like it's like the code version of like this person really likes to hear himself talk. It's like but it looks so nice, it's got so much API stylishness. And like, I don't care, this doesn't do what it needs. It's just complicated. Just rip it out, write it straight up. Don't make it complicated because you feel like this is the way it's supposed to be done in my brain. My model of the thing in my brain that's like, no, throw the thing out and not the brain, and then keep the brain, but don't throw the model out.
Do you think part of that is just kind of like how object-oriented programming works and how there's just kind of that like inherent mixing of data and functionality already, and how so many different objects just kind of need to interact with each other that you like kind of have to make some of these abstractions to like make the code base I workable in some way?
I think it's that, but I think it's, well, and this is like almost the same point, but I think it's like the core thing in my mind is that you introduce the concept of a model, of an object that should reflect some real world thing. And I don't mean like an actual physical object. I just mean like something you can conjure up in your mind to be a model to represent this. Like the fact that you're actually trying to model like an object in the game, the code for an object, that's where you sort of a little bit break. Obviously there's some point to having objects in the game, and the object has like a concept and like parameters, and there's a model, and like, oh, this is what constitutes an object. That's got some functions, but inherently I think it's just wrong to start like, oh, I have this chair in the game, oh, it should have all of this and this and this, and you like put that together into the concept of a chair. Like, no, you code so you get a chair on the screen, and then if you need to move it, then you move it, and you see where that takes you, instead of like trying to figure out what the chair is. Like, because like the chair is going to change 50 times before you're done with the game. So don't try to pigeonhole it into an object that you can reason about as a complete object. That's, well, yeah, long answered, but that's how I feel. I don't know if you agree, but it's,
No, yeah.
I think it's sort of the same thing you said to a degree.
It makes sense. And I also do want to bring this comment up here. I feel that the single responsibility pattern isn't useful for a system. Can't imagine having 4 systems just to have one set of transform, the other set something on a component, and have it do it all in the right order. I totally agree. I think, systems, like, they should generally do one thing, but I mean, you can kind of have like, many steps to get to that end result. Again, it's just kind of like thinking about data in, data out. Like what's the data that you have coming in? What's the end result that you're trying to get to? Make a system that does that transformation. And, whether that transformation is a few lines of code or many hundred lines of code, that's kind of,
I feel like an actual like good, still abstract, but a good example of like where that's sort of like, if you make the system that just does the transformation you need, then you're like, oh, I need to do this extra thing on the end, and then like you add that and you just write the code that does the thing, and you're like, just one file, whatever, like blah, and then you're like, we have a bunch of other thing that uses this end tail of features. But it doesn't use the first part of the transformation. Like maybe there's some transformation and like an UI thing that's going on. I'm like, oh, we need to reuse this UI codey thing to set that, but it needs to come from somewhere else. Because you didn't abstract anything, you just like take that code, copy it, paste it into another system, make some sort of a joint thing where some piece of data can describe both of the different pipes that going to feed this UI widget thing, and then you're like, oh yeah, I just copied over, I just found a way to like connect this up to the new thing, and then you'll have both, and then this this new end transformation is used for both of these guys now.
So I guess what you're kind of saying, like if I could give maybe a concrete example to kind of what you're describing here, is like, maybe if you have like a kind of a combat system, and you have some you have like one system that maybe handles like, applying damage to a particular entity, but you like also want to have some UI effect, like showing like the damage number pop up above their head. But maybe you don't always want that to happen. So then you would have like a separate system that just handles that UI. Again, it's taking in that same logic of, how many points of damage is this entity taking?
Or maybe you have
kind of like display that.
Yeah, or maybe you like, oh yeah, I made this damage, pop-up damage, and I made this UI pop-up thing, and then you're like, oh, we have healing as well. That should basically be the same thing, just a different color on the thing. So like, you just take out the pop-up thing of the damage thing that flies in the air, and you pipe that into the healer too, and the healer and the damage thing just squeezes into the UI pop-up thing. And because you didn't make a object oriented or object model of it and try to abstract this, because you didn't do that, it's all just plain code that you just need to just factor out, put it into a different thing, reuse, make it be part of another system also. But there's no like, oh, I gotta make this inheritance go to that object also, and I got to make, there's just code, copy and reuse in another place. And yeah, I think in that case, it's just better if it's not abstracted at all, to just move on with your life and make it work.
Move on with your life and make it work.
I think the other way around is
wisdom right there.
Make it work and move on with life. I think, it's my second language. It's that's what I'm going to blame.
I guess kind of getting back to the core of the question, are there any kind of other tips that you have about doing it better and data oriented, or is it just kind of, like you say, just kind of write the code that does the thing?
I would say remove stuff. If you're 90% sure or 80% sure it's not used, remove it. Just code that's not run or that you don't know exactly what's going on and why it's there. It's always going to be buggy or something. And if you break something when you remove it, then you're like, oh, I don't understand my code really that well. I need to figure this one out. And it's a little bit of a different, I understand it's not mainly like, but that sort of prevents it from scaling out of control with code that is hard to manage. I think the biggest reason is as few lines of code and as cleanly as possible as you can get it. That's a good start to. Now I almost forgot what the question was, but I feel like you asked me how to scale code in size or something.
Well, no, I mean, it's just basically what he was kind of asking up on screen right here about just kind of like best practices in general to keep your code clean and flexible.
Oh yeah, no. That was the right answer. Flexible. The fewer
you ain't
code.
Gonna need it.
Yeah, exactly. You ain't gonna need it. So
removing code is so satisfying. It feels like you're like cleaning off some like sacred object, like just getting like all this mud and crap off of it, and you're just like, oh,
and
so
then you
satisfying.
commit it, and you see the diff in Git, and you're like, oh, just half the file
minus 1,000 plus 3.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, keeping it clean and keeping it low lines of code, that is actually the actual thing that makes it flexible, because then you don't have fucking mud to go through to add something. You're just like, it's just 200 lines of code. I just add it. It's fine. All right. Yeah, that would be. What do you have any like twist on this, or do you sort of have the same feeling?
The twist on this that I have is this right here. Your code doesn't need inheritance hierarchies, design patterns solid. It needs data transformations.
Seeing it.
It is definitely an oversimplification, but I think it is just kind of a good principle to follow in general.
But
data
it's like
in, data out.
Yeah, but it's like an oversimplification to some degree, because you're probably going to end up like realizing the patterns and like, oh, we're pretty sure that we need this gun system in the game because the game is about shooting. And then like after the 6th gun, you're like, okay, yeah, I see some patterns here. Let's make some abstraction. So, shooting is like a concept that sort of applies in the design.
You can still do that in a data-oriented way where you're making kind of like maybe a little bit more of a general system that can kind of apply to multiple guns, right?
Yeah, I didn't mean like you should make it object-oriented. I still meant like fully dots or fully data-oriented or whatever.
Just want to make sure that you're not all of a sudden saying, oh, if you have 4 guns, you just use object-oriented.
No, not at all. No, I just meant like, well, I guess it's it still falls under exactly what it describes, because it just means that the transformation or the data might need some abstraction to it to make it like slightly more efficient to think about, and that maybe falls under the concept of design pattern, but it doesn't fall into hierarchies or solid. Screw those are almost never good. I hate it.
Sounds like a pipeline: input, process, output.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
way to look at
transformation, I guess, with the input, process, output transformation.
That kind of reminds me of I don't know if you saw the show last week, but Danny got a new title over at Unity.
Oh no, I didn't.
He is the VP of player loops.
The VP of player loops.
So, someone in chat gave him that new title, which was hilarious, because he was saying how he was like kind of like in charge of like Unity's like player loop now, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Ooh, like the update order systems and all of that.
Yeah. Or like he has like some, or I think he was like doing some rework on it, is what he said. And
Then he
so yeah, someone in chat called him the VP of player loops, which is
That's
just
good.
fantastic.
That's good. VP, does that always mean vice president?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah. I think it should be the P of president. Or P of update loops. Yeah, or yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
it gets a little weird because I think like there's like a bunch of vice presidents typically in a company, but like a vice president means you're kind of like in charge of like that one vertical.
oh right. So the
Like
vice president means that you're fully the chief of one thing, but you're not the
Yeah.
president over the company.
Right. Yeah.
Ah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I haven't never we don't have that kind of titles often in Sweden. We have more like the lead. That's it. Like lead engineer, whatever, or maybe technical director.
People are very into their titles over here in America. If you just kind of browse LinkedIn for a little bit, you'll very much see that people are always the VP ambassador of some
Yeah.
systems tech stack.
I've heard about that, and some people I find it funny. Some people making fun of it. It's kind of hilarious sometimes when people get confused if you don't have a title. Like, what are you? Like, I'm just a dude working at the company.
I just
Don't you have a
code.
title? I'm just doing good work. If Danny is on the player loop thing, maybe he's adjacent enough to the update system for the fixed rate things, and he can fix the annoying bug that you can't catch up a fixed update thing if it's behind for too many seconds and it's like lags. I'm gonna DM him and like,
well, I think
Danny,
did he show that, or there's like there's like a time value that you can like set that's like kind of that like max time basically. I don't know. Maybe we're thinking of something else. Anyways,
maybe I just know that I had to modify the source code of dots or the physics. Well, maybe it was entities. I don't know, some package to be able to add and speed up and skip 10 seconds of loading. That otherwise the fixed loop had to catch up, which made the game laggy as hell for like a bunch of time. Yeah, it was weird. All right.
Yes, Danny was voluntold that he needs to create a new ECS lifecycle diagram. Because there isn't one for the ECS lifecycle. Like, you know how there's that like classic mono behavior one where it says like, you know, start, awake, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So there is not a ECS equivalent one.
Oh, that's true.
Yet, so
gotta make something fancy.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this game that I have for a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to show off the trailer that I made for this game because it is probably the coolest thing that I've ever made in my entire life. So I'm just going to go ahead and share that with the people here real quick.
Beautiful. Good. That was awesome.
What?
No, the music.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you know what that? Because I basically did a shot for shot recreation of that trailer with another video game trailer.
Wait. Is I would guess it's either some Call of Duty or Battlefield.
It's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Not to be confused with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Because there are two different Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2s, which are different games.
This is the original one.
Yeah, this is the original 2009 one. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I played that a bunch. Yeah. Okay, nice. Yeah, I actually I recognize the feeling of it somehow. Yeah.
I have a side-by-side comparison video that I'll show at the end of this segment where it has the original trailer and my trailer next to each other.
Nice.
But yeah, so that is kind of the introduction into my game Turbo Wars, which actually is not a first-person shooter. It is, in fact, a real-time strategy type game based off of a StarCraft 2 mod called Nexus Wars. Basically, the idea with it here is, as you can see, we'll go ahead and just do a full screen on this scene view here. I don't know whatever. So yeah, basically, by the way, you recognize the buildings?
Yes. Mwah, beautiful. Mwah.
Yeah. So this
Looks
is
like a cyberpunk disco.
I know. I love them. I think it fits perfectly. But yeah, this is Tobias's fake interiors asset available in the Unity asset store.
I'll whip up a link. Continue.
Yeah. So the idea is that basically each person controls a base. So there's like, one base over here, one base over the other side. And then you see we have these kind of two lanes of battle. So you can basically send units either across the top lane or the bottom lane. It ends up being this, they call it like a tug of war type game where you just you basically just kind of like drop buildings to send units over to the other side. And the units do their own pathfinding, yada, yada, yada. We're going to cut in on something?
This sounds like a Warcraft 3 custom map.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure.
Continue.
Yeah, it has the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So, and then, basically the idea is that, you rather than like being super in depth about, commanding where your units go and everything like that, you're really just, counteracting what your opponents are spawning. So if they're spawning some certain types of units, then you want to, spawn the units that have an advantage over those units kind of thing. So it's more kind of strategical, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and just play this game real quick and just kind of show you kind of how the basic interaction works. So yeah, I have a kind of a little split screen view here. This is actually an asset available in the asset store here, where we can kind of have the two controller, the two screens, and they kind of split in kind of interesting ways if you kind of move them around like this. Anyways, that's not what this is about. So yeah, we have this kind of build a unit thing down here. So we can select this, and then we have the all the places that we can kind of spawn one of these, and then we'll just go ahead and click, and then you'll see that what's going to happen is that these characters are going to start spawning from this, and they're going to run across the map over to the other side, and then start attacking the opponent's base here. And then, of course, the opponent, we can build different types of units here. So this is kind of the Boyd's one. So if we scroll down on this, we'll see that a bunch of these kind of drones will spawn in just a second here, maybe. There we go. So we have these kind of little, Boyds spawning around, moving around, flying around. And then, this just kind of goes across, and then you'll see that these guys will just, kind of hone in on one of these enemies.
Naruto running?
Yeah. So they're Naruto running. And then, the other animation, the death animation, this, I remember this is called a kick in the groin. So you see them,
that's like exactly
just, fall through and kind of
so realistic.
So yeah, it is a little bit of a combination of a real-time strategy and tower defense type game, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the idea with the game. This was a fun little game to make, and so yeah, just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some of the code in here and everything. One thing that I was trying to find before, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out exactly how I was doing it. But yeah, I have the animations, and they kind of switch animation states. So actually, if I go back to this game, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in some marine units here. Just go ahead and destroy that there. Yeah, so there's actually kind of like some attack animations where they kind of do this like and I kind of have it like timed up with their attacks as well, so that like yeah, basically when they kind of shoot their hands forward, then it'll should kind of shoot out the different attacks. But yeah, that was the one thing that I was again talking to you about beforehand, where I was trying to find where I'm actually setting the animations, but I couldn't remember where I did that. So that was kind of like the one thing that because yeah, I mean I have like the GPU ECS animation baker here with the actual like animations defined on here, but this is all just kind of from the asset, because yeah, I'm using the GPU ECS animation baker. So yeah, maybe we'll see if we can find some of that stuff. But yeah, so anyways, this is kind of the whole setup that I have here. One thing that I remembered right off the bat is I definitely have a lot of scripts in here, because this was still back in the day where I have, oh, what's this base tag? Oh, let's create a whole new script for this, just this base tag.
Classic.
And, like, oh, we'll have a separate base authoring that adds this base tag on here. Although I guess I am putting some components in here, but whatever. And then yeah, all the systems and everything are separated out as well. So I think one thing, I guess actually we'll go back to Unity and just kind of talk about how the units are kind of moving around. So I'm basically just using the Agents Navigation base package. This was before the Agents Navigation Crowds package was available. So that might be one thing that I might have considered using is the Crowds package. I haven't seen any performance issues with the like pathfinding thing specifically, but it just kind of makes sense from the perspective of, I have all these entities that are moving to one specific base that going to one specific point, that it makes sense to have kind of a flow field pathfinding solution, just so they're not, all calculating their own, individual pathfinding basically to the same place.
Yeah.
And there was also kind of some things that I hadn't really implemented as far as like how the units kind of gather around the base. They just kind of go directly to it, and they can kind of get bunched up with each other, which is fine. But yeah. And so yeah, that's kind of what the movement is all based off of. And the way I actually have it is there is kind of like a difference between the visual assets and the actual assets that the characters are doing their like pathfinding on. Wanted to do that so I could kind of have that like separation between the two lanes, because otherwise then these two lanes kind of might be like one whole playing area, and we don't want like units from this bottom lane to go up across the top lane and vice versa. Right. So yeah, I just kind of have like some separate geometry that is specific for the actual pathfinding portion of it. So I guess, is it this nav mesh surface? Oh, well, yeah. So the nav mesh surface, I guess, is actually just the baked surface. So this ends up, what it's being. You can kind of see that there's kind of the elevated base area and the two lanes here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like how the movement works. And then, so, what happens again, if we have the two kind of marine entities, basically going across each other, then, oh, by the way, I should mention that I also created a video on this a little while ago, where I just kind of like went over, this was this was a promotion for Unity. They had a big asset store sale going on. So I'm kind of featuring a bunch of assets and how I use them in this project. But I didn't get like super deep into the technical side of things on this one. So it's just kind of like a good overview about, you know, how the game is and like generally how I set things up. But yeah, you see that one thing that I wanted to do is for the enemy battling, you know, we have the enemies that kind of, you know, will be running, just pathfinding towards the other base. And then, you know, in this case, you see that they're just kind of like running past each other. They're not like, you know, doing any detection. So that was kind of one of the first things that I wanted to add in with combat is like, you know, when it detects another enemy, that it's going to start kind of, you know, moving to that enemy and attacking that enemy. So one thing that I can just easily showcase off here is I'm using the shapes asset to just draw some debug lines, you know, about, you know, whatever entity that it's like targeting within its specific radius. So you can see that there's just kind of like these lines going between the different entities for, you know, who it's kind of supposed to be targeting.
Yeah.
I think this was also before I was like aware of A-line, the A-line asset.
Ah,
So
yeah,
I think
yeah.
I might want to use A-line now just because that works a little bit better with ECS stuff, and I don't have to, you know, interface with shapes, which is, you know, a little bit more. Shapes works just fine, but you know, I definitely like I would prefer the A-line asset these days. So yeah, that was just kind of one thing about. Yeah, this is actually before the animations are switching, so you see they're still kind of in the running animation state. So yeah, anyways. So yeah, we can get into kind of how I have some of the targeting set up. So, and forgive me, this is the first time that I've opened up this project in like a year. So,
Well, now we can see how clean and code that you've deleted unused stuff helps.
speaking of, as I was going through earlier, I was like, oh, I tried to make an octree at one point, but as you can see that there's one usage, and that is just the authoring script here, and I'm
And
drawing
then
gizmos for it, but I'm not.
nothing
It doesn't look
happens.
like I'm actually creating the octree.
Yeah, and that's like a red herring for everybody who doesn't understand know what's going on exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, cool. He's using like an octree for some type of spatial
Yeah.
partitioning, and is maybe an important part of the project, but no.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Perfect example.
I find it difficult to like, I can kind of like theorize in my head about like a couple of things that I might have wanted to use this for, but I don't like, you know, I can't put myself back in that mind state of like, you know, what did I initially want to use this for, and what did I end up, you know, replacing it with essentially.
It sounds like you know, finding closest neighbor problem solving, but maybe that's just what comes to mind. Good idea, drinking.
Yes. So yeah. So there should be a detection system here. So enemy detection radius, which is going to be used in find closest enemy system, which is actually a job. So yeah, this is a funny naming thing that I noticed. I have the find closest entity system, which schedules a job called find closest enemy system.
Yeah. That's when you sort of end up where you
by the way,
started.
I was like in full game jam mode creating this game, because it was like I, you know, had some other work stuff going on at you know, on the side, and I was just kind of like doing this in conjunction with that in my free time. So this is not a project that I was necessarily taking super seriously, but just kind of, you know, wanted to get to that sort of end result. But yeah.
Sometimes when you know that this won't grow into a large behemoth, you're like, there's some fun into just running and like,
exactly.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Run faster.
Yeah. I'm like, it's like, I keep thinking like it would be fun to like turn this project into a full release, but I'm just like, I just know that this project is like such a mess under the hood that like it would not. Yeah. Anyways, looks like you see axis aligned bounding box, which is exactly what we're doing here in the find closest enemy system. So yeah, basically what I'm doing here is is this going across? Oh yeah, I guess this is just kind of like a regular physics kind of detection thing. Okay, so this is an iJob entity. So this is going against, this has access to the entity, everything with a local transform, team ID, enemy detection radius. So yeah, anything that like can detect an enemy will detect an enemy. So yeah, we have the axis aligned bounding box, and what I'm doing is the overlap AABB. So basically what this does is just kind of like a quick and dirty, axis aligned bounding box, which is like pretty much going to be your fastest type of spatial physics query with Unity dots, because it's just kind of like, you're not like comparing anything against like a collider or some, skewed box or something. Like it's just the least amount of calculations to just like figure out what is within this specific area.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just doing an intersection of boxes at this point. So yeah, we do this overlap AABB, and then we're just kind of doing some basic logic in here to determine if the other entity is a unit on the other team that we can attack. And then if it is, then basically what we're doing is we'll be doing a set component. We're setting the targeted entity for any given entity to that closest entity that it's looking at here. Also, we want to make sure that it's on the same lane as us, because there was some situations I remember where if two units kind of got on like the middle edges of the lane, that they would like detect each other and start fighting across. But again, we don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of some like basic logic here. Again, this is just kind of like the first step of that, where we're just kind of like determining what our target is. And I think this kind of like makes sense to have like, in its own separate isolated system, because we can just set this target entity, and then later on we can have different systems to determine what they want to do with that targeted entity. So for example, certain types of units, they might want to run towards their targeted entity, like get a little bit closer first before until they're within some certain attack radius. Or I know like with the drone entities, of course, they have the targeted entity, and they basically just, follow right to that targeted entity and just kind of like, smash right into them. So there's like, a little bit of different ways that we want to kind of like handle how the targeted entity works. And yeah, so then I guess we can go into maybe some of the attack systems here. So yeah, here is the attack system. I think this is just the regular base attack system here for, I believe, actually the tanks as well as the little marine units run off of this attack system here. And as you can see, it's pretty basic stuff. We just want to make sure that the transform lookup, so that's anything with a transform. Okay, so yeah, we basically in this case want to make sure that our targeted entity exists. I think that's kind of why I'm doing this here, is doing the has component there against that transform lookup. And then just kind of doing some essentially timer related stuff here, because that projectile kind of happens on a timer here. And then we can set some of these values, like when we actually want to spawn that attack into the world, then we can just kind of do some, I'm using some entity command buffer operations here. Because again, yeah, it looks like I'm doing this in an iJob entity, a parallel iJob entity. So we want to make sure that, any changes that we make, we have to use the entity command buffer for that. And yeah, so it's just kind of setting all the properties on the projectile. So it's, going to be moving in the correct direction, and, apply the appropriate amount of damage for however much that player has. Of course, we'll want to apply a team ID to that just to make sure that we're not, having any friendly fire happen. And we can also, add, looks like the targeted entity as well. Yeah, so it knows what entity that it's basically going to be following.
Yeah.
And
I just thought that you have the add component, the entity component buffer. We talked about that a few times, but this is an old project, I know. But I also see like the add component. How Danny would be like,
yeah, just make the archetype and set it.
Funny.
Yeah.
I think about that every time now when I see add component. I'm like, do I really need to add components?
I know. I'm like so many times like doing the easy thing, or it's just like ECB add component. I'm like, okay, I'll go create this archetype and do a set component. Yeah, okay, thanks. Danny.
Am I gonna end up showing off this code at the Hot Path show sometime? Danny's gonna see and he's gonna read
Danny's
me
gonna
one,
completely
maybe.
flame me.
Yeah.
Let's see, on practices related to jobs, do you do everything as systems and wait until you have performance issues to make it a job? So I think I've kind of gone a little bit back and forth. I think maybe around the time that I was creating something like this, I'm pretty sure I just went straight into the iJob entity for this. Although lately I've been kind of taking it from the other approach where I'm doing most things in idiomatic for eaches. And then, like you say, just kind of looking at the performance analysis and then kind of making the determination at that point to move things over into Jobify them. So I'm actually not Jobifying too much stuff by default now. Even though I think in the past there was a time where I was kind of doing more things Jobified. I think especially with the old school entities.forEach, I think it was just almost nature for me to just go, I'm just creating an entities.forEach. So let me just do a dot schedule parallel on that.
Yeah. Same here. But I think it's good that that people, we and a lot of other are like moving into a little bit more default run. Like main thread is, and then you look at what's the characteristics, what does this end up as being in the end, like when we actually run the game with all the content. Like, okay, maybe it should be parallel, but until then,
I think that's kind of like maybe the third piece of the puzzle that we didn't really talk about too much in the previous little discussion segment. We were talking about data and transformations, but I think it's also important to consider the scale of, how many entities that we're running these transformations across.
Yeah.
Because, when I'm just doing, it seems like probably like 80% of the scripts that I'm writing, at least in like this Dot Survivors game that I'm working on, are all just things that just apply to the player.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's only one player in my game, even if it is, 4 players, that's still can be handled on the main thread very quickly without having that scheduling overhead for jobs.
Yep.
And then, the other 20% of the systems, those apply to things where there's more in the world, where there's like, the actual attack instances of the, projectiles flying around, or, all the aliens running around. Then like, those are things where it like makes sense to kind of Jobify those, because those are actually running across larger batches of entities.
Yeah. The second parallel orchestration has a cost, you have to think about it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And even more, I think the even bigger cost is like, it's obviously as a result of it, but like instantiation and all of that. Like if you're running on the main thread, you can do a lot more stuff. You don't have to schedule stuff necessarily. You can just push updates in a different manner to other objects, to other entities. So you don't have to do the orchestration, as he's saying. So I guess he's just the same point I'm making. I guess. Yeah, I just realized that I was talking. I'm basically saying what he just. Yeah. So all good point.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
So this attack system, this is kind of basically just like spawning these projectiles out into the world. And then I've done this thing that I've shown, I feel like a bunch of times on the show at this point, is kind of the collision detection system. So I guess if we go to damage on trigger, we see that I've created a whole class file for this damage on trigger here. So we're looking at, so we have a damage on trigger job. So, okay, so I'm kind of doing my kind of hit buffer thing here. So we're actually, this is where we want to, add something to the hit buffer here. Use this one a bunch of times. So there should be like a, projectile collision detection system. That's the generated one. There we go. So then, this is just kind of the classic trigger detection system. So the projectiles use triggers, and then we're kind of doing a little bit of logic here, just kind of determining which entity is the projectile entity, which entity is the entity getting hit. Again, we want to, consider friendly fire, so we can look at our team ID lookup here. We also want to look through our hit buffer. I've kind of shown this pattern a couple times where, again, we don't want to, while this entity or while this projectile may be traveling through another entity, we don't want to apply damage for every frame that it overlaps. We just want to apply damage that one initial frame. So we can kind of store all the entities that it hit within a buffer, and we just look through that buffer and then say, is it in there? If it is, then we'll just kind of return out of it and skip that one. Otherwise, we'll just add that to the buffer. And then now when it's inside this hit buffer, we can do a bunch of different things with it. In this case, we have the damage on trigger system. So we're basically just kind of applying damage. The way we do that is by adding damage to a damage buffer. The reason that we do this is because you'll see that this damage on trigger is in a scheduled parallel. So, maybe if there is a situation where two projectiles hit one entity on the same frame, we want to account for all the damage that has been added to an entity in that one single frame. I wonder if there's also we look up on trigger, if there's anything else that I'm doing. So I have damage on trigger. I do have spawn game object on trigger, which is another single class file here.
Nice.
Spawn game object on trigger system. So basically what I have here is, again, it's doing the exact same thing as the damage on trigger, where it's kind of, looking through this hit buffer. If the hit has already been handled, we just skip over it. But in this case, rather than, adding damage to a damage buffer, we're going to instantiate a game object. Now, what I'm using this for is, you can kind of see that I think if we just real quickly add a Marine here and a Marine here. Actually, this might end up still taking a sec for them to kind of go down to each other. But basically what I'm using this for is when the projectile hits an entity, then it's going to spawn like a little particle effect kind of thing. So we can kind of see that here if we zoom in to where they're going to start attacking each other. So you can see there's kind of like that flash of energy when the projectile collides with them. So it's just spawning like a little game object that is kind of doing that. And again, you can do this with sound effects, anything that you want. So that is that. Is for each.schedule equivalent to actual scheduled job performance wise? So I think this is kind of in reference to the like entities.foreach.schedule, which is not something that we really use anymore.
But it's the same thing as schedule.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's basically doing the same work. We're just kind of it's
both of them are code generated into the same thing, I think, more or less.
Well, yeah, and I think even the entities dot for each though, that was kind of before Unity was doing a lot of heavy code generation, but it still was kind of a Lambda expression that would like create a job and schedule that essentially, right?
For sure. They are doing heavier code generation now with Roslyn, the Roslyn thing. But I'm pretty sure that basically the same thing is happening in the end.
Yeah.
So. Um,
Another practices question, but what do you think about keeping components in the authoring/Baker file instead of separate? Yeah, that's kind of why I'm making fun of myself here because that's kind of the approach that I take nowadays. Is actually, lately what I've been doing is having components, authoring, and systems all within one script if they're all related and it kind of makes sense. Where, for something like this, for this spawn game object on trigger, I would have, all three of these things because right now these are all three separate things. So this is the spawn game object on trigger system. Like I just saw, we have the spawn game object on trigger component, and then there should be an authoring component for these as well. Maybe not. There should be, right? Spawn game object on trigger. Anyways, if there was an authoring component, then basically I would have the class file named as the authoring component because that's kind of the strict restriction for mono behaviors is the class file needs to be named the same as the class name. I'll have the authoring component in there, the data component, and then the system. For something simple like this, it makes sense. There's no reason to have these things set up into three class files.
Yeah.
But
I don't even use the term authoring. I just have the name, primary name, and then I have the component is called whatever data.
Okay.
And then system, because I don't know, authoring is just long word to write all the time for me. I'm like data and system. That's easy. So then the mono behavior gets to be named the actual thing without anything else.
I should start using the term data more. I use the term properties a lot. For some of my data components.
And then when you get into a complicated entity that has like lots of different components and maybe some components are doing then you can split it into data and state if there's some part of it that is like
the changing part. I have used that.
And if it's like actual constant data, then it shouldn't be in a component to begin with, and it should be in a blob asset, obviously, since you can share it between. But sometimes there's like runtime data, stuff that is like generated on the fly,
right?
And is put into on the spawn of an object, then that should be data. And then the other one can be, because then when you write to it and you read from it, then you won't have that problem of like writing. Then you can read easily from the data and have it read only, and the state I component can be just like that, can be the one that you're actually messing with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a good separation.
I like it. Okay, I'm trying to think about what other things that I want to show. I mean, I wanted to find that animation thing. I know it was something super simple where I'm just like setting the animation, but I remember I had to do some silly stuff about how I'm like timing the animation with when the attack hits and stuff, but it was so weird why I could not find that at all. But I wonder if there's any like interesting game logic type stuff in here. There's like different things related to like the income. There's kind of like a timer running, and then we kind of grant income to each team after some certain period of time.
On the topic of time, I saw something that you wrote. There was you had a cooldown or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. You
probably in the attack system.
It was named cooldown somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Online. So the attack timer.value. Do you still do timers like this? or is this because it's an old project? Well, I don't want to call you out or anything. I'm just so you don't. Do you see a different way of doing it now, or would you still do it this way?
So what do you mean by this way? Like just having like a timer inside of a data component?
The timer that is counting down.
Like on like an individual entity basis kind of thing?
Yeah, so what I've done, and I've
Oh,
seen so many people do what you're doing, and it's so tiny that it doesn't really matter. But for me, I'm like, I'm I always do when I have a timer that is like a single thing, like it's just some cooldown that goes down or something. Then I always do um, the time in the future when it should
or at least
happen,
set the target time. Yeah.
and then I compare that to the running game time, and that means I don't have to increment or decrement. Do you say decrement,
Yeah.
decrease, increment and decrease the cooldown or timer value every frame? Then I just need to compare two different floats every frame.
Right.
So, but that's one of those things that's very, very tiny. So it's not like it matters that much. But when you start doing it with the timer for the future, then it's like it sort of gets second nature to you. Just compare. You just set the time point and then like compare it against that point and don't change anything. The only thing that needs to be changing is the global time variable in the game.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're basically just looking at the current, elapsed time, and then if it's like a 5-second timer, you'll just add 5 to that current time and then store.
Yeah. So this would be like attack timer would maybe just be renamed to attack time, and then it's like attack time dot value is equal to attack timer dot cooldown time plus current time. And then like, oh, when the current time has run 5 seconds into the future, then this will trigger, and that's the cooldown for 5 seconds that you need. So just saves one add or subtract.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. I use it for some things, but I think I still use timers for quite a bit of things. Again, it's just easy to think about. You're like, oh, I want a 5-second timer. Let me store the value of 5 seconds, and we'll just decrement that, by delta time, basically, and then just compare that with 0. But,
yeah. For me, it's the other way around. So I guess it's subjective. For me, it's easy to think about the other way around, but it is because I've been doing it like that forever. But yeah, it's sometimes also like if you have like an animation that like you have some sample time that progresses through an animation and samples the animation or animation curves over a span of some complicated animation, then maybe that has like a slow motion mode or a speed up mode or like just a speed variable or something, or a pause. You can pause the animation stuff. Then your value need to progress every frame, because that's super annoying to do with a timer value, because then to have like a timer value that's well, yeah, it's too tricky to explain without showing an example. But then this adding or subtracting to a value every frame, that's a lot easier. So whenever I have something that has more complicated time manipulation, then it's always a timer value that I add to. So
that makes sense.
This is different tools for different problems.
Well, yeah. So yeah, and then Mr. also says sounds like a preference thing on timekeeping.
Yeah.
I'd say it mostly is because like the operations that we're talking about are like so quick, like it doesn't even matter. But like, yes, technically the solution that you say is slightly more efficient because we're not doing this
but
subtract by delta time. If I'm even doing that, I think I'm doing that somewhere else. But
yeah, I think I saw it somewhere else. Yeah, but also like to counter my own point a little bit and to counter this performance thing, like unless you're doing it like tightly fixed in a bursted loop, it's like the time you spend getting that RAM from even the L1 cache into your registry is probably the equivalent. Like it makes the whole add operation
0.05% optimization as opposed to other things which you can probably get like 80% optimizations out of, right?
Yeah. It's just so incredibly tiny. It doesn't matter. It's like less than the distance squared root.
Right.
That is actually that matters a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But this one is so insanely tiny. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like the concept of having fewer variables changing. So it's more like a principle thing than it is a performance thing for me. Like, oh, the fewer variables changing every frame, the
Right.
better.
And yeah, I suppose maybe there is, even in the context of Unity dots, a potential efficiency gain with that, because you're not having to open up a particular component for write access where there could be some additional dependency checks
Yeah,
on. So
that's true.
That could be something. That's probably even more significant actually than the performance gains from
Yeah,
removing that one subtraction operation.
yeah, probably. Yeah. So for me, yeah, it's more principle than it's performance, but I guess there is a performance difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything specifically that you wanted me to go over in this project?
If it would be anything, it would be the animation thing. But that was the video you were showing, right?
What do you mean?
It wasn't the video that you were showing that you already made on this project. Didn't that dive a little bit into the animations?
Let's
Maybe
actually
not.
go into. Yeah, I think I just watched it back and I'm not I didn't show any code or anything about actually changing the animations, but I just said I just synced up the animations with.
Okay.
But yeah, that's so weird. Why I can't find it, because I know there is
I didn't even actually think about your that you didn't find the code that was actually controlling this. That was not in. I was just thinking was this the baked animation thing, or was it something else? But then
Well,
I
I
realized.
could have sworn there's somewhere within my code that I need to set the index for the animation that I want to play.
But
And
also,
I just want to remember where I found that, because I think I was doing something kind of silly with it. So I just kind of wanted to uncover it for that reason.
Yeah. Also, I'm confusing this, I think, with the Code Monkey's baked animation thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
No,
we just
I'm using
mixed
the
up
asset.
with-
This is the GPU ECS animation baker, where it
Yeah.
basically bakes all the animation transforms into a texture.
Yeah, similar to what it did, I think.
Similar to who did?
Code Monkey.
No, Code Monkeys was a little bit different, because he actually stores all the individual, he basically stores unique meshes as essentially animation frames, and then he sets the mesh index on the
Yes,
component
so
to do a
stop-
flip book through that.
stop motion thingy. Almost. Yeah. You're right. I'm just confusing everything now.
Yeah. And yeah, by the way, this is the GPU ECS animation baker, not Rukonka. Yeah, that's.
But no, don't. I didn't mean you to go deep again into finding your GPU thing.
I wonder if I can just, like you say, just go into play mode here real quick, and then just see if we can spawn one of these components here. Let's go ahead and pause that there, and then see, here we have the new unit. Oh wait, yeah, is it this child thing?
GPU ECS animated.
Yeah, this has GPU ECS stuff on it, but I think this does. So this has agent stuff with all the pathfinding. But yeah, this also has GPU ECS components on here. And so I could have sworn, yeah. Okay, so what is it? This animation. So yeah, this is it. GPU ECS animator control component.
Oh my God! Talk about
GPU
being verbose.
ECS and ECS animator. animator control component. And I'm using this in begin. Okay, so here's one. Yeah, begin unit death. So I'm.
Can't you just to get all the usages of the actual variable inside?
Yeah, I could do this too. Well, okay, yeah. So this is. Oh yeah, so this isn't really changing the animation. GPU ECS animator aspect. So yeah, it uses an aspect.
Oh, that's why you couldn't find it.
That's funny. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming back to me now. So we have the animator aspect, and then we call this run animation. And then, oh yeah. So this is, the weird thing I remember. So yeah, when you create different animations, then I think it does some of its own code generation.
Oh,
Because I didn't create this here. So yeah, it creates this.
I've done this. I've done exactly this in my project. Yeah.
So it basically maps the enum value to the different animations. So yeah, you just cast this to an int, and then you can just pass in some things like this about the related to the animation speed and where in the animation you want it to start and yada yada yada. And
100%.
then
That makes sense.
this stop animation flag. So yeah, then there's this stop animation flag, which I guess is also applied to the entity. Yeah, it's been a while since I've used the GPU ECS animation baker. But yeah, okay. I'm glad that I found that.
Nice.
But yeah, I know I was using this in kind of some, I think, weird ways in the attack system as well. But anyways, doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, it's overall like a pretty straightforward project. There's not like a whole lot going on here. Again, this is mostly just kind of like a way for me to showcase, how to use a bunch of these assets in interesting ways. But yeah, I think it ended up being, a fun exercise to make. And yeah, I think, the coolest thing by far that came out of this though is the trailer that I made for this video. I've watched it so many times.
As somebody who has, I made a trailer out of zero education or anything about that for Battle Right, an actual,
An actual game.
Yeah, I made a trailer for that game. I got real critique by a person who actually knew how to do that about one thing that you're also doing in this that is big no apparently. It's like,
okay. Showing
black,
my logo at the first screen.
no black fades, just hard cuts. He was like, unless you have a specific reasons to do a black fade or black or
well, that's kind of the point. That's kind of like the styling of the trailer that I'm copying. So actually,
they do have it in that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna play the side by side of the trailer so you can see. But
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that was kind of like a fun exercise that I did. It was like just taking the existing game trailer. I like literally put that in my Adobe Premiere, and then so I had all the audio from that. And then just like went on top of that and then was like, okay, what's the shot in the original trailer? And then like, what shot do I need in my project? Like, let me go create that shot, bring it over into Adobe, line it up, add any effects as needed. So it was a really kind of like eye-opening process about like, the whole trailer creation and everything that kind of goes into it all. So I thought it was a really fun exercise. If you're want to get better at making game trailers, like I would just recommend doing that. Like, again, literally just drop that trailer into your editing software and then just, start building up your trailer kind of on top of that. So
that sounds like a good idea.
Anyways,
very much agree.
I'll go ahead and show the side by side right now because I think it's a cool view. So it's going to be my game on the left and then the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on the right.
Yeah. Okay.
So like relax, I'm spilling these raps long as you feel them. To the day that I drop, you'll never say that I'm not killing them. Cause when I am not, then I'ma stop pinning them. And I am not hip-hop, and I'm just not Eminem. Cause I don't really think that the fact that I'm slim matters. A black and platinum status is whack if I'm not the baddest.
Yeah. Damn. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really funny if you look at like the side by sides, like each shot I was like what is the closest thing that I have like in my game to this trailer? Like,
Yeah.
there's like the thing with the tanks, and I have like the tanks showing, and like
Yeah.
there was like the part with like the helicopters, and I had like the drones going around. So
Yeah. And as Dark River says, it's perfectly cut. Yeah.
well, I mean, it is easy when I'm copying their homework.
Yeah. But like it's still, it's not like you didn't do anything. You still,
Yeah.
made sure that all the
No, yeah,
shots,
I had to go in, like, yeah,
Yeah,
I had to go in and like right where that cut is. I'm like, okay, how do I, frame
Yeah.
this up and like, fade the black at the
Exactly.
right time, and yeah.
It takes a lot more work than you realize. It's just,
Oh yeah, I mean
it's-
that even again, copying someone's homework, that trailer took me a full like long day to create.
yeah, exactly. And I'm actually surprised that that old trailer had the black fades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I got raked over the coals for my black fades in that. It's like,
Well, they do it in a kind of cool way because it matches the beat of the doom doom.
Yeah, but you do hard cuts. I've cut all of mine to the beat of original soundtrack for Battle Right, and I also cut to the music, even beats. But I think maybe it's a little bit of a fashion thing, and we just like moved on to like, oh, we just cut hard. It's a similar thing, I think, where if you go back of like 15-20 years, you'll start getting into art, UX that has like bevels and stuff and now we're like, oh, bevels, who cares? Like we know we
And
can
make a comeback.
yeah, we know we can do gradients. We don't have to show off a gradient on every letter we have. So like,
Like the
we just do-
classic Microsoft Word art stuff.
I think there's a similar thing with the cutting in this case. Like, but I did mine at 2016, and by that point, apparently, I was like, "What the hell? Don't do that!" And I was like, "All right." And then when I recut it, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, with the hard cuts, it looks better." So but maybe you should do another trailer someday and do hard cut and see if it feels better.
Well, yeah. So I actually am going to be working on another project that is not Dot Survivors for a video soon here, and I kind of want to make a trailer, but I also think it's going to be a lot of time that I might not have. But yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well,
We will see.
maybe we should
Yeah, I was
start
just
wrapping it up.
I was just getting ready, pulling up your dynamic allocation of the week here. So yeah, we close things out. We have a little segment here called our dynamic allocations, where we share some fun things with the community here. So why don't you let us know what you're going to be sharing with us this week?
You don't have to put it up, but can you put up my thing when is it not working?
I just copied the HTTPS no colon there for some reason. That's weird. All right, I got it. You want me to show it?
Yeah, you can show it, but I don't think. Yeah, try it. Maybe it's because you have black and some dark mode.
Do you want me to turn off the dark
the-
mode?
No. I was just didn't recognize it. Yeah, it's the
No,
right
we're
thing.
just blinding our whole audience. now.
Okay, so before it's the YouTube exactly flashbang. It's the YouTube, but you don't have to start it yet. I'm gonna just explain one thing. So I've had an idea for like a billion years. No, maybe for over a year. Okay, that's calm down, Tobias. I had an
Since the
idea.
beginning of the universe.
Yes, for a long time, where I love painterly look in 3D. And it's just it's tricky. There's so many ways to do it. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
weird things about it that you can explore, or so. And I wanted to make a fishing game where you're exploring a sea, and the whole game should look like a painting. And I wanted to do this because I have like this idea of a technical solution to doing painterly look in real time. It's basically a monstrosity of a custom shading solution. Super complicated thing with a lot of crazy math. I actually like spent like a full week rewatching all of three blue one brown videos about linear algebra to get a hang of eigenvalues, so I could like figure out how to do edge detection properly.
Oh,
So I
wow.
can, yeah, I'm like was deep into this, and then I got the job with sulfur, and like, okay, never mind. It's for future me. Anyway, this is. And we don't have to watch it in 4 minutes, but if you just like start it, this is like looks exactly. Do full screen. This is exactly the look I'm going for, and it's like gonna pop in now soon, and you're gonna like, yeah. I don't know how it shows on the stream.
It kind of almost has like a stop motion type feel to
Yes.
the animation as well.
And all the lighting is like some sort of realistic thing, but it's like this like painterly normal map thing.
Yeah.
And this is, this is showcasing Blender
Wow.
and very custom solution for shading in Blender.
Yeah.
But like, I think I can do a real-time game looking similar to that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, is this video that they're showing, is this kind of like a real-time simulation, or is this kind of a pre-rendered type thing?
It's pre-rendered. It's Blender, so it's like I don't know
Okay.
what the performance of this is. I think that's sort of irrelevant. And now they're going into things that is just that this doesn't matter
Blender
for
stuff.
me.
Yeah.
But the way that they made the art in full 3D, but still like every shot, every still frame looks like a painting. Like just if you scroll back and you just like pause it on different frames.
Oops. Oh, wait.
Well, maybe at the better, like with the full like view of the paint. Yeah, that's like halfway a painting.
Yeah, I mean, like the clouds and stuff. Like, yeah, I could see this. I could see this on somebody's wall.
Yes, exactly. And imagine making a fishing game looking like this.
That'd be cool.
That would be so. Yeah. So anyway,
Would it be kind of like a calm, chill fishing game? What are you thinking?
I want it to be a fishing game where it is like sort of inspired by Dave the Diver in my head or something. But no, I think I want to make something where you are on a revenge path to revenge somebody who got caught by a monster in the sea, and you need to fish to get the economy and build the biggest battle boat and then go out. Something like that. It sounds weird, but I have like an idea in my head.
Gotta go hunt down the kaiju.
Yeah, but anyway, Blender is super awesome. I am not a 3D modeler, so I don't know, but they just released this, so that's my dynamic allocation. I thought this was a just amazingly good looking arty video.
And I completely agree. You should definitely make that game with your enthusiasm. You talk about it.
Yes, yeah, but I've spent like thousands of hours in my brain on this on the shader problem. There's so many tricky things to do to
Seems
make
like a
this
lot.
happen.
Yeah.
It's very, very complicated to do. But anyway, who knows? Maybe one day I'll figure it out. Very, very kind words by Jara Coleman. Jara, did you say it? Jara? Maybe? I don't know.
I'd say probably, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel glowing, so I should do it. All right, that's my...
Sweet. Well, yeah, let me go ahead and I wanted to share this guy, Luke Muscat. I think I already shared him on this channel before, but I just, as we were talking about the topic of creating game trailers, I also might have shared this specific video already, but anyways, it's still a good one nonetheless. Where this guy, Luke, he previously worked on like Jetpack Joyride and Fruit Ninja. He was kind of the game designer on those.
Yeah.
And so he created this game that I mean, I guess it's kind of like a scuba cave exploration type game where you're kind of underwater searching for things. And so he basically made a trailer for his game and basically gave it to like a professional games trailer guy for feedback. And in this video, he shows a lot of kind of the like the interview that he had with that person who was kind of giving him feedback on the trailer. And, you know, like you were saying, talking about a lot of those, you know, small little details in there that really just kind of like changed the whole feel about the trailer. So yeah, it was really cool about like, you know, how he showed the trailer and, you know, it's like, oh, okay, that looks like a good trailer. But then, you know, this guy comes in and he says like, okay, you know, you don't want to do this, you want to do this. And then he kind of goes through the iterations of the trailer that he has created. And you see like how it kind of evolves over time. And you're like, oh, okay, that actually is like way better, way more professional feeling, does a better job of like showcasing the game. And so, yeah, it's really cool. So, yeah,
I'm gonna
out.
have to look up that look. Yeah, that looks like a very interesting video, actually.
Yeah. And yeah, this guy's got a lot of good content as well. Yeah, he recently released his game. It's called Feed the Deep. And so yeah, it's out now. And but yeah, if you go to some of his like popular videos, he's got 6.4 million videos on this one, How I Designed Fruit Ninja. He also has How I Designed Jetpack Joyride. These are both really good videos. Just really cool, like video games history almost, because you know, especially if you kind of came up in that era of the early mobile days when like mobile games were actually really novel and cool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where people are doing a lot of really interesting things with design. And yeah, you played some of these games like Fruit Ninja, Jetpack Joyride, and all that. It's just like a really cool look into how these games were developed and you know, how they came to be. So would highly recommend those.
Very cool. I've seen the Fruit Ninja one, but I haven't seen the other ones. So I should check them out.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, yeah, it's ended up being a little bit of a long episode here, but yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it nonetheless. Yeah, once again, that was episode 40 of the Hot Path Show. Real quickly, as we do want to thank our Patreon supporters over at the CPU Register tier, which is our highest tier. So thank you to eCool and Hakan for your support over there. We really do appreciate it. And yeah, once again, if you do want us to support us over on Patreon and as well as through YouTube memberships, we do have some cool bonus videos over there. So again, I mentioned the Odin Solitaire video that I just put up. That's available to all supporters over there. So anyways, with that, Tobias, you got any parting words for us here today?
Blank in my head.
Wait, what was that awesome thing that you said that was like make it work and move on with your life?
Yes. Okay. Move on with your life and make it work. I think I turned it around.
Yeah, you said it wrong at first, but
yes. Ooh.
Awesome, Mr. Awesome. Oh, Walter, Jinx. No, but really, thank you so much for the support. We really do appreciate that over here.
Nice. Yes.
All right, and yeah, with that, go ahead and close out our show. I'm gonna go ahead and play some PS5.
I'm gonna go ahead and let Felix, our dog, sleep now. I think he's like, can you shut that light off, please?
I want to go outside, but it is completely white outside. I haven't left my house since Tuesday night, and I'm starting to get a little cabin fever over here.
Time to pull out the cross country skiing.
I did see someone actually walking by, I think, who had some little skis and ski poles on. I'm like,
good stuff.
There you go.
Enjoy it. All right.
All right, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you next week for an exciting episode of the Hot Path Show. See ya.